Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace here on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. It's been a while, for sure. Definitely have missed you guys. It's been strange not communicating with the Sifters as often as we usually do. I feel like there's been like a weird void in my life for the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I haven't had any voids, really. It's been a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, so Matt's been on vacation since like right after E3. He got back last week. And so we couldn't do a show during that period, and we're still in the process of finding a new TriCaster operator. And so this is not obviously streamed live. This is pre-recorded, and we're going to get the episode out to you as quickly as possible. But I think it was kind of good for both of us maybe to get a little bit of a break after E3. As usual, E3 was pretty intense, and then it was all capped off by my car getting stolen. I think I needed a little bit of a breather there at the end of E3, but we're back, and we're ready to rock. Let's just jump straight into it. The first topic I want to discuss is Sifted. So,
Dun, dun,
dun,
dun.
dun, dun. If you guys watched The Grind, I kind of hinted that there were some pretty big things coming for Sifted. And you should watch The Grind. I don't know why you guys don't watch. They only watch
I think it's that MTV show where everybody's just dancing.
Maybe they think it's like a dance party. But anyway, I mentioned it on The Grind that came out last week to try to supplement the fact that we couldn't do GameFace. And I want to share those details with you right now. So the big news is, right before I came here to Matt's house to record this episode, I signed a lease for a new studio. So we have a new studio coming. You're probably asking why and how that happened. Well, why and how it happened is that I just yesterday paid off my student loans. After 20 plus years, I finally paid off my student loans. And before you ask, no, I'm not angry if everybody else gets their student loans forgiven.
Yeah.
Totally cool with that.
Much like I'm not angry if it costs $20 to buy a Gateway computer from 1996 now.
Right.
Time marches on, and things improve.
So the money that I was spending on my student loans, I have decided to that money I was already outlaying for the last 20 years, I decided I haven't missed it. So I'm just going to take that money that I was putting towards my student loans and put it towards a studio. Now, the truth is, we're going into the red again. So I'm going back to losing money. But we've kind of reached an inflection point with Sifted where it's like crap or get off the pot. I need to figure out if this is going to work or not. And I just don't feel like we're going to be able to do that if we did not have a studio and our production values weren't a little bit better. So basically what I've done is I have invested a bunch of money in another year of Sifted. So the lease is for a year. It ends basically right after next E3 ends. And if we get to that point and we're not seeing upward trajectory, upward momentum, then that's going to be it. So I've decided to make yet another sacrifice for Sifted. Not only that, I'm also going to invest some money into the site. So we are talking to Brent right now about making some changes and updates to the website. Nothing drastic. We're not going to completely redesign the site. We're just looking for features and options that maybe you guys, now that you've used the site for a long time, would like to have. There is a thread in our forums right now asking you guys for suggestions. I honestly already have a list that's like this long. So I'd be surprised if any of you guys suggest something that I haven't already figured out, but there's strength in numbers. And so I'm asking you guys, if there's features or issues or other things you don't like about Sifted.net, let us know. We're going to try to get as many changes made as possible. So I guess the best way I could describe it is I'm going for broke. And I hope that's not literal. I hope it's just figurative. But I just feel like if I'm going to take 5 years of my life, more than 5 years, but I'm going to dedicate 5 years of my life and money to something, I want to make sure I gave it every opportunity to succeed before I move on. And that's what this is. So the clock is ticking starting today. We have 1 year to try to get this site, our Patreon, our revenue, up to a place where we can actually grow.
Reset the clock.
Yeah. I mean, right now we're just treading water, and we have been treading water, which means that if money goes down, I lose money. If it goes up, then I'm like $50. Oh, you can't grow a business that way. We need extra revenue so we can hire people, and we can get people to do other stuff, and we can expand our content off there. We need money. So this is it. This is basically the mandate. We have 12 months to get Sifted into a better place. If that doesn't happen, and I know I've said this before, and I know I don't want to be the guy that's crying wolf, but this is literally it. So We have 1 year. If by the end of E3 in 2020, and it should be great because all the consoles are going to be announced, if we can't make it happen with that stuff, it's just not going to happen. So I've invested money back into the site again. I've invested money back into our production values again. Our Patreon, and this is terrible timing, our Patreon is like an all-time low right now. It was really hard to sign my name on that, but I believe in it. I believe in our content. I believe in the website. So we've got 1 more year, folks. Let's try to make it happen. As far as how GameFace is going to work, we're doing this show right now. I'm going to try to get this out to you here tomorrow, because this has to be cut, by the way, because we're doing this offline. And then the idea is the week after next to have our first show in our new studio. The show next week would also be a pre-recorded episode, unless I somehow grow 4 extra arms and I can operate the TriCaster while I discuss games with Matt. Probably not going to happen. So anyway, that's the update. It's a huge update. It's a huge risk for me. I know it. You guys don't have to tell me that. I know it going into it. When I signed my name today, I knew what I was signing up for. So if it doesn't work out, it's not your fault. I'm not going to place blame on anyone or anything like that, but it's just reached a point where it's got to happen. So
we've been on the couch long enough.
We have, absolutely. Yeah, and it would just be good to be in a studio anyway.
Yeah.
I think you guys are going to be really excited about the new studio. GameFace is going to be changing, and I'm not going to tell you how it's going to change until you see that first episode, but be ready. It's going to be different. Everything's going to look different. It's going to sound different. I think you guys should be pretty excited for it, but
we're going to suck helium the entire time.
But that is about 2 weeks away, so the new studio show won't be for 2 weeks. I'm actually leaving town on Thursday morning to go to a wedding on the East Coast. The daughter of my sister, who passed away a couple years ago, is getting married, and she has no parents left. So I'm going back for her wedding. So I'll be out from Thursday until Monday, which means our next episode will probably be later in the week next week. And then after that, we'll be in the studio. So I just want to take this moment to thank everybody who's been along for this ride all along. You guys are freaking amazing. Without you guys, we wouldn't have made it this long. But really, for us to survive and thrive, we need new folks, and that's going to be the big goal for the next 12 months. And with that, let's get on with the show proper. We're going to kick things off with a game that at a certain point I wondered if it would ever even come out, but it has done that and then some, and that is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, IGA's kickstarted spiritual successor to Castlevania. I have basically finished it. I'm still stuck on the last boss. I haven't fought him for a couple days, but I got stuck, and then I went back and farmed to try to level up to make the last battle easier, and I have not tried to battle again since I've done that. But I've basically finished the game. Matt, how much have you played so far?
I'm like 3 bosses in.
Oh, okay.
I told you when you got here, because I haven't seen Shane since the last episode we did.
Yeah, since our best of E3.
Yeah, and like I said, yesterday I sat down to play some of the stuff that we're talking about today, and that's the first time I played anything in a week.
Yeah.
And then before that, I was up in San Francisco, and the only reason I played anything while I was there is because there's a PlayStation 4 in the guest room at my mom's house.
Is that yours? Did you put that there?
Yes, I put one there so I would have something to play when I was there.
Smart.
But it's not a Pro. It's very disappointing.
You're slumming it.
Yeah, remember we talked about the video game addiction thing. And I don't think I'm addicted. I don't think I'm addicted.
Yeah.
There's too much to do otherwise.
Yeah.
But I played a bit of most of the stuff we're talking about today. So I've played a little bit of Bloodstained, probably like an hour.
Okay.
Although I did play it on 2 separate systems. The Xbox One when it launched, because I was a big impatient gorilla about it, and then I got my code for the PlayStation 4 because the PlayStation 4 codes from the Kickstarter didn't get to the backers until almost over a full day after it came out. Like, people who bought the game, pre-ordered it an hour before it came out, played it before the people who backed it up for PS4.
Whoa, that's bad business.
Because Sony, in the US, because Sony America was just super slow to get them the codes. And they've done that before, actually, for other Kickstarter code things. So that's purely Sony America. It's not EGA or any of the people who made the game doing it. People were like, "Oh, why didn't you submit earlier?" Like, they submitted everything at the same time, and Sony in Japan and Sony Europe got them the codes just fine. It's Sony America. Sony doesn't give a shit. But I did. So I was interested because in the very beginning level, like, you're on the boat, and it's in a rainstorm and stuff. On the PlayStation 4, there's a lot there, unless they've patched this in on the Xbox One.
They have issued like 3 patches.
They've done a few patches,
already.
so I haven't seen it since then. But when I played it the night it came out on the Xbox One, there were no rain effects on the boat. It was just like it was moving, and there was like a sound effects and rain in the background. But then you play it on the PS4, and it's just pouring rain on the boat, and you can see rain running down the sides of the boat. It's almost like distracting, and it was not there when I played the Xbox One version the night it launched. So I don't know if they fixed that since then, because there was a lot of weird patch. The one patch like opened all the chests that you needed to open to progress. So like. If you played a save before version 1.02, I think it was, you couldn't finish the game. You had to start over because the patch opened all the unopened chests in the game, which meant you got nothing out of them, which included the essential items to upgrade your character. Yeah. So it's
like Metroid. So you get abilities, and then you have to use that ability to open up a new section.
Metroidvania. Which I've been very amused at some of the hot takes in the media. Saying, like, can we stop saying Metroidvania? It's like, no, Jeremy Parish coined that term 20 goddamn years ago, and you are too late.
Yeah.
It means what it means now. Yeah. You're done. Step down. If you want to fight like a stupid game terminology thing, go prevent people from calling them schlooters.
Yeah.
How about that? Make yourself useful. I don't know. I've been tangent, but I've been a little shocked by some of the. I must be slow. You can tell some are slowing down because some of the articles are like there was an article on Polygon about how the King Kong game
Peter Jackson's
that launched
King Kong
with the 360 was a secret masterpiece. I'm like, what are you
he called it the most innovative game of that generation.
No!
You can tell there's nothing going on right now. The hot takes
that is the video game equivalent of the color gray.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing of use in that game except it was the easiest 1,000 until that Avatar game showed up, and you could get the 1,000 points in like 5 seconds.
That's the only thing I remember the game for.
Yeah,
people played it get all the gamer points and achievements like that. Yeah.
Blew my mind. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
you haven't played a ton of Bloodstained.
I haven't played a ton. I played the opening section and like the first part where the first couple of sections I fought like the couple bosses, one of the big guys, one of the human guy, not human, but he's like he looks like Dante. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't quite pieced together who's the equivalent of which Castlevania character in this game yet, but like you can kind of see it's like, okay, that's the guy's Alucard and this guy is this guy. Yeah, it's like, but I'm real happy with it. I mean, I just it's not like I haven't played it because I don't want to play it. I haven't played it because I don't have time.
Yeah.
It's just I think it's great. I mean, I love those games. I love Iga's Castlevania games. That's why I backed this thing for like $125.
Yeah. What did you get with that other than the game?
I got a physical copy, digital copy, like an art book that's supposed to show up later, a bunch of DLC stuff. It's not, so it is a first. The physical copy actually came in a shipping box that actually has the game's logo on it.
Oh, wow.
Like the actual logo, which is, I guess, would be a bad thing if people knew what it was more than just like, oh, that's a thing to
mine.
Steal. Yeah. But that was interesting.
Nice touch. Yeah.
But I love that kind of game. I miss them, and I know there's games like Hollow Knight and there's various iterations of it, but nothing's quite like the original made by the original. And
that is what has struck me the most with this game.
And
honestly,
it also,
like he's the godfather of that genre.
And it also drives home. It's like this is the first one of these on a console since Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
He never got to make another console one.
Yeah, I know.
And that's crazy.
He was just stuck on handhelds.
Because you can see like this even early on. I'm like, oh, this game has every idea that Konami ever shot down.
Pretty
that
much.
He ever wanted to put in these things. Visible equipment changes.
Yep.
A whole cooking system, like the upgrade systems are crazy and varied and deep, and every enemies can drop like this item, or they can drop food items, or they can drop crafting items, or they can drop obviously the crystals, the shards that give you the upgrades, and you can upgrade. You get multiple shards, and multiple shards of an ability makes the ability strong, but you can also consume the shards to upgrade the abilities in a different way, and then you have to reconsider. I was like, oh yeah, you.
It's insane.
It just keeps going and going and going and going.
Yeah, there's many layers to the depth.
I think it looks really good. It feels good to play. All the weapons have a very different feel.
There are
tons of different weapons.
Many. Wait till you get towards the end of the game. Like
the whip doesn't feel anything like Castlevania.
I don't even use the whip. I used the whip when I got it to check it out, and I used it in like one boss fight, and I never used it again.
I didn't like the whip very much.
Yeah,
really.
You're right. It does this weird kind of like...
It's too low. It goes lower than I expect it to usually.
It doesn't do that like whack that goes straight out. Yeah.
I've mostly been sticking to long swords, and...
That's what I use pretty much the whole game.
Longswords and claymores are kind of my go-tos right now.
Yeah, because and you'll probably end up using it through the whole game, because the other part of it too is that eventually weapons become available in the store to buy or to craft.
Yeah.
And the longsword...
I've already crafted a couple of them, because like what I was finding was not good enough for what I wanted to do.
But what you'll find eventually is that the longswords that they offer that you can craft and you can buy and you can actually afford and can craft with what they give you, they are the most dominant weapons in the game, and they feature huge jumps. So like you can get a longsword early in the game that's like 20 points higher than the other weapon. And then you use that, and then you get to the point where all the weapons have kind of caught up as far as level, and then there's another one that's like 20 or 30 levels higher than anything
really
else.
Trying to reward you for playing with a crafting system, basically.
Yeah, and it's also good, too, because they help you have some distance between enemies. Because you can't take many hits in this until before you die. So you really have to be cautious. Later on, not so much.
I mean, I found it pretty easy so far.
It is pretty easy. I said on the grind that it was probably the easiest Castlevania game I've ever played.
I don't think it's easier than Portrait of Ruin. But Portrait of Ruin is a whole different beast in a lot of ways because of the character switching thing.
Right.
But I mean, I feel it feels right. You can tell it's by Iga. Tons of depth to the inventory and crafting and all that. I like that the big monster bosses it's not fighting them doesn't feel like fighting the human bosses that first hunter guy you run into. Like I had to learn how to fight him. I had to learn how to kind of utilize the dodges and some things. And like I liked that it didn't feel like fighting one of the big monster guys. So
creatures,
I feel like
they're very nimble.
Yeah, because I feel like that's a thing that Symphony of the Night like always kind of struggled with a bit. Was like all the bosses were just like fighting a big thing that had a lot of hit points, and I felt like a fight with another human with a weapon like feels like a duel between two characters, whereas a fight with a giant monster feels like a totally different kind of boss fight, which is a really cool distinction to make in terms of the game design. So I like, I can't speak with tons of authoritativeness because I've only played like an hour and a half of the thing, but like it's really good first impression. Let's put it that way.
The other thing that's cool about the human bosses is when you fight them, they will basically use all the stuff that became available to you up to that point. And so you may have got a shard with a new ability that you haven't tried, or maybe you looked at it and were like, oh, that doesn't seem like it would be all that effective. When you fight that boss, you can see what can be done with those. And several times, like either I'd start using that in the boss fight, or as soon as the boss fight was over, I would equip that shard that was used against me in that fight because I could see what it could do. So yeah, the boss fights in this game are great. The one thing I will say, and this is just a personal gripe of mine, and not just with this game, but with a lot of games, is I hate games where you cannot tell how close the boss is to dying. It can be very frustrating because it's like when you can see that health bar, like when there's just like a couple pixels left, you have this go for broke moment where you're like, he's almost dead. You know what? I'm not going to be conservative anymore. I'm just going to unload. And you can't do that in this game. You have to be very careful until that last little speck of health is gone.
Yeah, I do tend to prefer health bars on bosses, or like make them flash or whatever. Yeah. But like not in this. Like that's a tradition. Like the tradition of the Igavania is like, I don't know how about, and like suddenly the screen freezes, you get that level up thing, and like,
you get that feeling that comes over your whole body.
Yeah. So like,
and you're right. There are pros to that approach, but I think as you keep playing this, some of the bosses in this game are really hard. And believe me, there's gonna be a couple points where you're like, damn it, like if I wish I knew how much was left. Like it's a little frustrating, but I actually love this game. Right now, it is my indie game of the year in a landslide. I love everything about it.
Be very hard to top this one.
Yeah, I mean, I now have almost 30 hours into this game. And it's, I think, a $39.99 game. So great value. There's a Game Plus that happens afterwards. When you finish the game, like there are dozens and dozens of weapons and stuff still to unlock to go back and play the Game Plus with. So there's motivation to go back and play more. The story is good, shockingly, and it's not really rote. Like it's not just a typical Castlevania plot.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like feeling where it's like, okay, so this is the thing in Castlevania. you got to come up with another reason for someone to go into a magic castle and kill a very dapper man.
And he does.
And they do. They come up with it. It works.
It's not great, but it's not terrible.
Although when you think about it, you probably could have just used Dracula because he is public domain.
Right. Yeah. But he's free to play, I guess. That's a good way to put it. But I think what strikes me the most about this is how you can play it however you want. So I hardly ever use range stuff, guns, anything like that.
Yeah, there's a whole range. I just haven't even touched that.
I'm not used
to
doing it.
Yeah.
And so I never touched it. And then I fought a boss where getting up close was like a huge mistake. And I went back and I started using like some of the projectile stuff, and I was like, oh my god, it's like wrecking, and like I was getting criticals like over and over. So I saved, went back to home base, and then I, like you were saying earlier, I pumped a bunch of shards into that ability, went back and fought him, and it was just wrecking shop. Like, you can play this however you want, and that's something I also appreciate about it, and it's also very well handled. There are some stuff that's unbalanced. Like, there's one shard that you get that is basically a shield that goes around you.
Yeah, that one, everyone I know who's played it has been like, dude, the thing, it's God mode.
It's called like Welcome Home or something like that. And you can keep leveling it up. So basically it's this circle of books that swirls around you. And not only do they protect you from incoming damage, it does damage on enemies. And as you upgrade it, more and more books join the force field around you. I mean,
finally, that English major pays off.
I actually beat a boss one time without using a weapon. Just jumping over him while the books were swirling around me and just criticaling him, like every time. Crick. You can play this game however you want. I love it. My expectations for this game were real low. After the delays and like the footage that had come out, it looked kind of janky, and it's great.
Yep. I never doubted Ego. Man makes good stuff.
You're right. It was a mistake probably to doubt him. But when you start getting mixed in with all the Kickstarter stuff, and we saw what happened with Inafune.
Yeah, but Inafune was never a designer. Inafune was an executive.
Yeah.
Iga made this stuff.
Right.
I mean, you want to see a Kickstarter screw up, go watch more Star Citizen footage.
Yeah.
There's a new, God, I can't remember, some Latvian guy on YouTube, and he usually does Elite Dangerous stuff, but his friend convinced him to come with him and play Star Citizen and it's a video, and it's just them trying to get in a spaceship, and for the first like 15 minutes of the video, it's just them running to the spaceship over and over. It's edited, so you're not sitting through all of it.
Right.
But they're still running into the problem where if you try to crawl down stairs, you die. And then they kept getting in the elevator, it lifts you into the ship, and they lift them up, and they both die. Like, you just randomly die when you ride elevators into the ships. And then he finally got into the ship, and he gets into the gunner turret, and like the arms like wrap around the character's head, and like it's just complete nonsense. And like, you know, I know there's a whole contingent of just like, oh, lots of games take 7 or 8 years to make. Yeah, not many actually, and usually they look better than that after 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
So I think Bloodstained is.
Is it the gold standard for Kickstarter now?
I think it may be. I mean, in terms of delivering, like, I want this experience of this classic game I loved again from the original maker. I would argue that no other Kickstarter game has delivered like this one has.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Shenmue will, but
the
question of whether that's a good thing or not is sort of in the air.
Right,
you know,
that's a good point.
Yes,
it's like you may give people what they want, but is that good?
Right. It's like, because like I think I've said before, like if you treat Shenmue 3 as a modern remaster of a game that came out in 2004, like I think that makes more sense in terms of what we're getting.
You're moving the goalposts a little bit, but
like I mean, they are just making Shenmue again.
Yeah.
Like they're not making a modern
take on
Shenmue. They are making Shenmue 3 as though nothing ever happened.
As if
basically. I mean, really, like
as if the last 20 years never existed.
Pretty much.
Also, by the way, 20th anniversary of Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years. I still remember every minute of the day I picked up that console.
Yeah. Well, the
whole day. I remember getting up, being so excited, going to Software Etc. in Philadelphia, hanging out with like 80 people in line. It seemed like it was going to be the biggest thing ever.
I already had one when it came out
here.
I had the Japanese one from a year before. But I obviously wanted a US one because that one could go online. And I remember we would go down to a mall down in it was called Valco near San Jose, because they had an EB and a GameStop. It may have been a Software Etc. at the time, or a Babbage's, but they had 3 game stores. They had a Software Etc. or an EB. They had a Babbage's or a GameStop, and they had an independent store that was not a chain called Digital Stuff. Actually, there were 2
Catchy
of them.
name.
There's 2 of them. There was one there and one in Hillsdale. The one in Hillsdale closed. The one in Valco was still open. Digital Stuff was like this scrappy, like they would sell the stuff that like no one else would. That was where you could get mod chips. It was they were the gray market place.
Yeah.
So we go down because like this was a period. I don't know if you had this when in that era in Philadelphia or anything, but there was a period where all of us, everyone I knew who played games, like we refused to pre-order stuff. Like pre-ordering was for suckers.
I definitely pre-ordered the Dreamcast.
We didn't.
I remember walking in with my receipt.
Pre-ordering was for suckers. Pre-ordering was just giving them money to invest with before they gave us anything back.
Which is
true.
true.
We're like, no, like we're gonna fight the man and like find it on launch day whether it kills us or not. And we did that for everything.
Wow.
And actually, like sometimes finding that stuff was more fun than playing it.
Yeah.
But so the day of the Dreamcast launch, we're like, all right, let's go. We go down to Valco. There's all these people in line for, it's like 11 in the morning, 10 in the morning. There's all these people in line at the Software Set of GameStop, whatever it was, EB, like for that. And then upstairs at the Babbage's, there's people in line like hoping that they're going to get these shipments not in. So we walked down to Digital Stuff, which was down to the other end of the mall, which was like not as heavily trafficked, which is probably why they could afford it, because it probably was cheaper on that end of the mall.
Yeah.
We go in and see the guy's like, oh hey, it's like, you got any Dreamcasts? He's like, yeah, we got 2. We're like, I was with my friend Andrew, who you know back then. Like, oh, we'll take them. We took them. We bought them. No problem.
We got really lucky.
And we just walked out we intentionally walked past the people in line. It was like, where'd you get that? Oh, last 2. Sorry. See you later. Like,
That's great.
And we get in, and I think Andrew said something of it. He's like, they'd be even more pissed if they knew you already have one.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but I can't play NFL 2K on it.
Right.
Now I can.
Yeah.
That was the game that was like the most mind-blowing.
Oh yeah.
Like,
as far as like seeing it and being
not even liking football, but just like seeing it on display. Like,
I remember.
Things can look that good.
I remember the day I came home, all my friends came over to our apartment, and I was already living with my eventually to be wife at that point in Philadelphia in an apartment, and all my buddies, all my buddies came over, and we were all sitting in the living room playing, and Michelle walked by, and she goes, I didn't think they were playing, and I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I thought, because it was like, what day was it, a Thursday or something?
I don't know, September 9th, 99.
Yeah, I can't remember what day, but it wasn't like a day that football should be on.
I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday.
And she was like, why is football on the TV? And I was like, that's my Dreamcast I just got. And she was like, oh my God. Like, even she was like blown away by it. So it definitely made an impact. I thought the Dreamcast was going to be a runaway success because launch day for me was insane. Like, everywhere I went, there was just lines. Like, it just looked like it was going to be a phenomenon. And I brought it home, and everybody saw it. And then all my friends went and bought one. Like, nope. It didn't work.
That was a time when if you didn't have EA, you didn't have the mass audience.
You're right.
That was the end of it.
It's true. Happened in the N64
Very different
now.
now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things very different 20 years later from the way it was back then. But anyway, I think both of us wholeheartedly recommend Bloodstained.
Oh, yeah.
It's a budget title, but you're going to get literally like 30 hours out of it your first run.
The only downside for me is it makes me sad to think like what Iga's work could have been if they'd let him make like PlayStation 2 games.
Yeah. It's true.
Instead of like forcing him to make stuff like Lament of Innocence and all that crap.
Yeah.
I know. I don't think those games are, like Lament of Innocence and Curse of Darkness are not actually terrible. Not in the way that Castlevania 64 is, and Castlevania 64 is terrible. I don't care what this weird renaissance of people who were 10 when that game came out. It's like, oh, it's really good. No, it's terrible. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
The game was always terrible. It's still terrible.
Yeah, didn't they re-release it too eventually? Like they put out
they put out Legacy of
Cut
Darkness. It was called Legacy of Darkness. It was a revamp, and you could play the werewolf guy.
Right.
They added that and stuff,
which
was marginally better, but it's still terrible.
But that was also supposed to be in the original release.
Yes. Yeah, it was mostly cut content. It was
stuff they couldn't get done in time because that game was delayed over and over and over. Where it finally
there's a lot of N64 stuff. Like Body Harvest was like that too.
Yeah.
But like Lament of Innocence and Curse of Darkness, I don't hate them, but I sure wish they'd let them just do 2D. Because there was that period in that generation, especially PlayStation 2, where they're like, no 2D games. No
Yeah.
2D games. In fact, I can't remember where I found it, but I found somewhere online, it was like a little screenshot, a little shot of a little sidebar thing from Nintendo Power, and they were comparing Castlevania 64
To Zelda.
to Symphony of the Night.
Oh.
Because they were both about to come out at the same time.
Nintendo Power Magazine pumped up Castlevania 64.
It was
hardcore.
like, check out this, the PlayStation Castlevania using old 2D graphics and stupid sprites. Like,
now
whereas
look
the
at
Castlevania
this.
64 has full 3D, and it's just like, yeah.
That didn't make it better.
Wait for it. wait around a bit. But it's really cool to see like kind of this style of game done by the original Iga team.
The OG, yeah.
With the music from Kojima and and the art by Ayane Kojima. I mean, they gathered the all-stars. They gathered everybody who made Symphony of the Night great, and they just did it again.
Yeah,
It's great.
It's really, really awesome.
It is, and oddly enough, even though it is clearly a 2D Metroidvania, it does feel like a game made this year, unlike Shenmue.
Yeah, it's true.
They didn't ignore the years that have passed since then,
for sure.
and they made something special. So.
Yep. Go get it, guys. It's
I
real good.
would assume everyone watching this already has it.
Yeah,
frankly.
probably. I don't know.
If you don't already have it, I don't know what you're waiting for.
I mean, I was skeptical about it, but that's why we're here. We're here to tell people, go buy it, and you should buy it. Right now, it's slow anyway. There aren't a ton of big games coming out.
Well, that's kind of also what I mean is like, press on it has been very positive. Reception has been positive. It's been a couple weeks. It's very quiet right now in the release department, so why aren't you playing this?
You should be.
Get on with it.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Harry Potter Wizards Unite.
There's a depth change.
Briefly.
Yeah.
It is kind of the next big mobile phenomenon, although...
But not as big as they thought it was going to be.
Have you played it?
I made an account and I captured like Hagrid and I turned it off. I couldn't go. I was stuck somewhere. I couldn't go anywhere. So I'm like, oh, I can't do anything else.
I managed, like, as soon
I
as
just
I
never
booted
opened
it
it
up
again.
in my apartment to capture like 8 things, like right there on my couch.
I got nothing. My mom lives nowhere, so or she's like up like a more rural road, you could say, and so there's nothing near. If I wanted to catch anything, I would have had to go like a mile down the road to the 7-Eleven.
But I'll say this.
Where all the real magic happens.
I'll say this though, when I got to the point where it was like, okay, now you have to go outside, I stopped playing.
Yeah, I'll go outside for Pokemon. I won't go out for
I didn't even really
Wizards.
do it for Pokemon. I did. I did
I
it
went
a
around
few
for
times.
Pokemon. Like my girlfriend and I went out. We went out to Santa Monica, the pier, and to capture water Pokemon, and we go like different places.
I did that once.
It was it really did get people. I'm going to the park, in La Brea Tar Pits. There were hundreds of people walking.
No,
around.
it was insane.
There were people,
in LA, it was insane.
There were people live streaming from laptops using satellite internet. It was crazy.
I
had never seen anything like that.
There's a little burger joint around the corner from where we live, and for whatever reason, they got lucky and became a hot spot. And like I would drive by, this hamburger place never had people there. Like it's just really old and like hardly anyone eats there. And for months, just crowds. Like we went in there and we were like, man, you got lucky. He's like, oh, I hit the gold mine. He's like, I have no idea how this happened. He's like, but as soon as I realized it did, I put a big sign in the window, and he's like, it has just been crowds.
Somebody on the dev team liked going there.
It probably did.
Or you can also because most of the Pokestops were just carried over from the nodes from Ingress, and Ingress was largely community focused in terms of what should be nodes. So either the dev team person or someone who played a lot lived near there and liked that place and submitted it, and that's how that happens.
Yeah, to me,
you could almost overlay the Pokemon Go launch map with Ingress, and it would match up.
Yeah, I remember that. With this game, though, this is not happening.
No.
I have not seen anyone out looking for whatever crap is in Harry Potter.
I haven't seen anyone talking about it. I don't know anyone. No one's asked me about it.
I mean, the day it came out, the downloads were gigantic. Like, it did. Like, a lot of people have it on their devices, but it's just not.
Yeah, I have it on mine.
I have it, too. I think the problem, though,
Let's
is
open
that
it. Let's see what's in there.
Pokemon was like custom built for that idea.
Yeah, Pokemon was very obvious. Yeah,
the catch line is gotta catch them all.
Until Sword and Shield, in which apparently it's got to catch some of them.
Right. Maybe not all.
Maybe not all
eventually
of them.
all of them.
Maybe eventually, but right now, just
Just catch some
A
of them.
select number.
Just catch a few.
A select Pokemon assortment.
Yeah. So I think intrinsically...
A taster's assortment.
I think intrinsically Pokemon was a better choice for that design of a game than it is for Harry Potter. And, I mean, the truth is, if you really look at it, though, probably Harry Potter is a bigger franchise worldwide as far as, like, how many people are aware of it, how many people like it.
I don't know about that.
It's close, probably.
It's up there, yeah.
But it doesn't always translate into more successful
Harry Potter
games.
translates into better movies in the end, in terms of box office.
Yeah. Pactor kind of touched on this on the episode of Pactor Factor that went up yesterday, because someone was asking him why...
Yeah, see, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
There's nothing around us.
Yeah, it's empty. You're right. That's weird.
Like, we could go to the 7-Eleven, we could go to the Starbucks there, we could go down to the tar pits, but...
That's about it. It's empty.
This neighborhood is very non-magical.
Yeah, my neighborhood apparently is magical.
So, yeah.
But Harry Potter doesn't have a collecting aspect to it at all. It's just not a part of the IP. And Pactor, someone asked him, why is a game like Cyberpunk 2077 tracking so much better than something like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? When Star Wars, you would think, is a much bigger IP because Cyberpunk never existed until, like, at least to gamers, it never existed until a few years ago. And Pactor was just like, because certain things are bigger in certain mediums than and Star Wars is bigger as a movie franchise, but it's not bigger as a games franchise. And then he
in part because it's been dormant for 10 years.
Right.
And in part because it's EA.
Yeah.
And so the core gaming population is not all as excited about something from EA, no matter how good or bad it may be.
But the point is, you can't just look at an IP and say, that's gigantic, and this isn't quite as big, so
also,
this is
if
going to
you
do
made
better.
a Star Wars game in which you had a big open world where you could... I mean, if you made a Cyberpunk, like Cyberpunk 27, except it was Star Wars, it would be that big.
It would be, you're right.
I mean, a lot of people are looking at Fallen Order and just seeing another Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's correct, but I can see why you'd look at that and that would be your perception.
Yeah.
So, I mean... People forget, it's like, you can put out a half an hour gameplay, but most people see about 30 to 40 seconds of it and make their decision.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing, too, is Harry Potter doesn't really have a USP. There's no unique selling proposition. It's a Pokemon Go clone.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like you can't...
It's really not very tailored to what you'd want out of Harry Potter. I mean, look, the thing that Harry Potter fans that I know, which are all people in their mid-20s, grew up with it, the thing they're excited about is that action RPG that leaked.
Yeah.
For next gen.
Yep.
That's the thing everybody's looking forward to.
Yep.
Nobody even knew what it was. I mean, they had the logo for Wizards Unite on the side of the booth at E3 at Warner Brothers, and people walking by, I was like, what the hell is that? Like, no one knew what it was. And there was no reason to know what it was because there were logos, but there was nothing showing it or explaining what it was. Like, it was almost incidental, and like it looks like there was just no hook to it. Everyone wanted to play this new Harry Potter game, but like then once they're like, oh, it's Pokemon Go, except I'm collecting broomsticks and people? Like, what? Like,
yeah. It doesn't work the same. One thing I will say is I do like the mechanics better in Harry Potter.
Yeah, it does feel like it feels less, I guess, thin.
Yeah, instead of just...
Pokemon Go still has a feeling of sort of instability inherent to it that this does not have.
Yeah. Like when you capture stuff in Harry Potter, like you draw something on the screen with your finger, and you don't just have to draw it, it's how fast you draw it and how accurately you draw it. So if you can draw really fast and accurate, you can catch like every time. Whereas Pokemon Go, it was like I tossed the Pokeball, it seemed like it was completely erratic whether it actually went how you were holding your phone made a difference, and like I just like the capture mechanics better, but the rest of it works way better with Pokemon.
Yeah, the capture stuff in this does feel a little more dependable, although part of Pokemon is sort of that random element.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's... I don't know. I doubt if you hadn't talked about it here, I don't know if I ever would have opened that app again.
I won't open it again. I'm done. Yeah. So, it's free.
Yeah.
And I will say this, it does seem a little more generous than Pokemon Go was at first. I don't know what it's like now, because I haven't played it in like a year and a half or whatever. But, like, I had not run out of, like, chances to capture stuff yet. Which is why I stopped playing Pokemon Go. I ran out of Pokeballs, and they're like, hey, go over here. I'm like, I'm not going over there to get Pokeballs.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. So,
I don't remember. I mean, I've opened Pokemon Go a couple of times the last year or so. I have hundreds of Pokeball. I don't have hundreds of Pokeball. I have hundreds of, like, whatever, like, the 2 steps up ball, or I have tons of Master Balls or whatever.
Ultra Ball.
Ultra balls.
I think it is,
So,
yeah.
I have a lot of the upgraded ball. I don't know why.
I have none.
Part of it's from friend
And I haven't
gifts.
played it since. When I ran
I
out,
have friends who
was
play it
done.
all the time and send me gifts all the time. So I open it up and I've got all these. I'm like, oh, look at all the Pokeball. Oh, your inventory's full. You want to buy more inventory space? I'm like, okay, but how did this become this?
Buying inventory space. I've never heard of that before in a game. Paying for inventory space.
You haven't?
Dude,
you need to play more Diablo clones
Yeah, I don't.
and MMOs.
Really?
And that's super common. That's like one
Really?
of the quickest and easiest ways you get someone on those games.
Wow.
Yeah. Like buying bag space, buying.
I've never I've never played a game that asked me to do that.
I can't count how many I've played like that.
But it shows you those are genres that I don't typically play. Yeah.
Like I mean that's usually like games where you have, either the kind of the online games where like you can play for free or you can subscribe.
Yeah.
Extra inventory space is one of the key bonuses for subscribing.
You know what? League of Legends does have something like that.
Yeah?
Yeah, if you play for free.
I didn't even know that had an inventory.
Yeah, well, it's loadouts, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if you don't pay, you only get 3, I think.
Yeah, that's a similar thing.
Yeah. And then if you pay, you can pay for extra ones, which helps you be more versatile to play against unexpected.
No,
opponents.
everything's got that. Even hell, even games that like don't have online transaction like Titan Quest has that. But Titan Quest has no microtransactions. They just charge you a bunch of in-game gold to expand your inventory or to expand your shared inventory between all your characters.
Gotcha.
Like that's a premium premium content inventory space for some of those games, especially those loot games.
Yeah. So do you think Wizards Unite has any chance to kind of stay relevant?
I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's just not going to be a phenomenon like Pokemon Go was.
Yeah.
And Pokemon Go settled out to about 4 or 5 million players, and no one really talks about it anymore. But 4 or 5 million players is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, it still generates a lot of revenue. Would you recommend people download it?
I mean, you might as well. It's free.
Yeah.
Like, sure, see how if you like it.
It's not big either. It doesn't take up a lot of space.
No,
on your
it's
phone.
fine.
Yeah.
What do you got to lose? Like
if you're a Harry Potter
5
fan,
minutes?
I 100% recommend
Sure.
downloading it and checking it out.
Sure. And then there's the fun, like the profile thing. You take a picture of yourself and it turns you into a wizard and sticks a hat on you.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's a lot of fun, like bells and whistles to it. It's just it doesn't hook me. If maybe I was collecting Star Wars stuff in it, I'd be more interested. It's just it's not a Harry Potter kid because I was 23 when that.
Because you weren't a kid.
Yeah, I like Harry Potter, but it's not something I voluntarily spend.
My
a lot of
affinity
time
for
on.
Pokemon is way, way higher.
Yeah, although I was the same age pretty much when that came out, when Pokemon came out, but Pokemon's more fun. I guess.
Better.
I don't know.
It's better.
I didn't have to identify with an 11-year-old to enjoy Pokemon.
That's true.
Although I guess it's about how old your trainer's supposed to be.
Is he?
Maybe
He's
he's
a
more,
tween.
maybe
Yeah,
he's more
he's
like
a
13
tween.
or 14.
Yeah.
They're about that same age where in Harry Potter you go to wizard school and Pokemon you get kicked out of the house and told to wander the earth to find animals to fight with one another. Pokemon's a very strange society.
When you really think about it, yeah, it's really bizarre.
All right, Jimmy, it's time for you to go out on your own and
You're 12 now.
learn how to cockfight. Hope you catch a dragon. It's just like,
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about...
town with 2 houses in it.
Yeah.
Video games.
We're going to talk next about possibly Sony striking back at Microsoft. So rumors are swirling that Sony is in the process of offering to purchase Remedy. Remedy is the studio behind Max Payne. It's the studio behind Alan Wake.
That's the most significant. I mean, in a sense, they'd be stealing one of Microsoft's old buddies,
Right.
because Alan Wake was an
Xbox exclusive
thing, yeah. But it ain't like they're using it. So.
And what was the game that they just put out for Xbox One?
The Quantum Break.
Yeah. Which did not do well.
Perform.
No, and for good reason. It wasn't great.
No.
And now Control was coming out. It's a multi-platform game.
I have that on Game Pass now. I should finally try that.
What?
Quantum Break.
Oh yeah.
I've never played it.
You maybe not want to do that. But anyway, so Remedy is a good developer. Its games are generally really polished, and you may or may not like the concept, but...
Control looks a lot better than Quantum Break.
It does,
for sure.
yeah. Well, Quantum Break had that weird, branching story path, FMV stuff in it.
A lot of live action stuff. The guy who played Iceman.
Yeah. But it also kind of makes sense because Sony just lost Quantic Dream as an exclusive developer.
We need something with Quant in it.
Although I don't know if I would say lost. It might have been a case where Sony kicked Quantic Dream to the curb. But
I mean, it might have been... Remedy would be a pretty decent replacement for Quantic Dream in the sense, like, hey, we can get someone that can tell cinematic stories, but can actually make a video game.
That was the point I was getting at.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I think
Remedy's got gameplay chops,
right.
basically.
Yeah, so it's like a good replacement for Quantic Dream. It makes almost too much sense. How much do you think this is Sony reacting to Microsoft snatching up all those studios?
I don't know how much it would be reacting, but I could see it kind of being like a 50-50 sort of like we need a replacement in the same vein as Quantic Dream, but we also like, hey, Microsoft's doing this stuff. Maybe we should think about some new blood too. It does seem to be in the same sort of current. But I also feel like Sony is sort of insular enough that they don't often look at what anyone else is doing before they make these decisions. So like the idea that Sony is like running scared and has to buy some Sony would never think that about themselves because we're an arrogant Sony period now. So.
I think if you start looking at next
but I do think
gen,
they're looking for some new blood because and more in kind of the kind of gameplay oriented adventure stuff because Quantic Dream stuff didn't work, and I think they're sort of expecting Death Stranding to be a big thing. And I would definitely say that like Remedy could do something on par with Death Stranding in terms of sort of a very involved, weird world, cinematically based, story-driven, but also gameplay doesn't suck sort of thing. You know?
Yeah.
Like
something people will remember. When they see it.
You know, say what you will about the quality of Remedy's games over the years, but you look at Max Payne, look at Alan Wake, look at Quantum Break. Look at Control, all extremely different aesthetics, all extremely different worlds, but there is sort of like a Remedy quality to them that's still
a lot of them have innovative mechanics.
Yeah.
I mean, don't forget Bullet Time from Max Payne.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like a paradigm shift.
They're the first game to do that.
Yeah.
Like they were the first.
The whole game was driven by it.
One game to look at the Matrix and be like, we can do that.
Yeah.
And they did it.
And then with Control, you have the worlds that basically just break apart in real time.
Fun fact, Max Payne 1 was the first game I ever played for Capture at Tech TV.
Wow. There you go.
So that was one of the things that helped me get me in.
If you start looking on down the line, though, at next gen, and Pachter brought up a good point. He was looking at all the studios that Microsoft purchased, and he said, if you think about it, like these new studios are probably going to give them about 3 games a year. Mm-hmm. So you put that on top of the stuff you're getting out of 343 and the Coalition and all these other studios that already owned.
And Playground. And
you're looking at 4 or 5 really good exclusives a year. And then you think about what Sony's doing right now. It's at like 2, 3 maybe?
2, 3, yeah. I mean, and
they're really good, but
they're disparate enough that like, and also like the thing is, Microsoft's variety of studios is going to cover holes in the schedule just by nature of how many people are working on all these different things. Right. Whereas if Sony has a delay on something, you leave a hole and you have nothing to plug it with. Like the Days Gone thing. When Days Gone slipped, you had nothing for like
they had nothing for Q4.
Yeah, basically like we went from Spider-Man in September to Days Gone in what was that? March?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a gap.
It's a big hole. Yep. And especially when you're talking about like that far down the line.
And Sony's got the multi-platform support to kind of like fill that to some degree, but I think moving into the next generation, even Sony is aware that like you're going to need to be self-sufficient to a point because you don't. These third parties are fickle.
Well, they'll go anywhere they can make money.
Anywhere the money is, yeah. And like I mean, there's one.
And
thing
I don't blame them. I mean,
there's one thing one thing at least I learned at E3 because I ran into a lot of people I know who their games are on Game Pass now. And I was curious about that, so I asked a bunch of them. You're at a party, everybody's drinking. It's a good time to ask people about business stuff because they might tell you things.
Yeah.
You know, and every one of them, I was like, so what's the Game Pass thing like? What do they do? What's the deal when they do? And every single one's like, they just gave us a lot of money.
Yeah. There was reports coming out this week.
Like, they gave us a lot of money.
Oh yeah, there were reports coming out this week where developers were like, this is how it should work. Well, of course it is.
Yeah, give us a ton of money, and we just
and we do nothing, and we make money for doing nothing. Of course, that's how you think it should work, but it's not.
But especially
Packer said it's not sustainable.
Right, and especially some of the smaller games where like they're like, yeah, they gave us more money than we expected to make, basically.
Yeah.
Selling the game.
Yeah.
So, of course, you don't turn that down. Like
of course not.
You'd be crazy.
Yeah.
And if that is going to become sort of the new paradigm. Yeah, Sony's going to have to worry about what is in their schedule and what might drop out of their schedule, especially because that's how Sony got in the industry in the first place.
Yep,
that's
true.
That's how they basically bought all the exclusives away from Nintendo and Sega and made it a more attractive deal for everybody to be heavily involved with them. And you may have noticed it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
For a long time.
Really
It
well.
really paid off.
Yeah. Little game
products,
called Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. And I mean, look, and ultimately the proof is in the pudding. If they weren't putting out good products, it wouldn't
Right.
work.
If they didn't have good hardware, if they didn't have the disc-based hardware that attracted the Square developers to make Final Fantasy VII there instead of the N64, that would
They
have
had
been
the
a thing.
Trojan horse.
But you read that article from a couple of years ago where they interviewed the Final Fantasy VII dev team, and they are strikingly honest about the run-up between Nintendo and them, and how Sony kind of wooed the project away and all that, and how Nintendo didn't talk to them for 4 years, and it's crazy. And that stuff happens all the time behind the scenes, and it looks like with this new Game Pass streaming service thing, you are more involved in that than ever.
Yep.
Like it's practically a renaissance, and the war on that is heating up. They just announced there was a Variety article today that Warner Brothers is pulling Friends off of Netflix in 2020, and it's going to go on their streaming service with HBO Max. And I mean, the Netflix era is over. We are in the wilderness years of streaming services now. Everything's going to be disparate, and you're going to have to. It's going to start. If you want to see everything you want to see, you're going to have to start paying almost as much as you paid for cable.
Your cable. It's all come full circle again. It's really crazy. I mean, and now look, EA is putting its service on PlayStation 4.
Yep.
I mean, where does it end? When it comes full circle again, and consumers are like, wait a minute, I'm paying more now than I did before.
Yeah, it ends when our wallets are empty.
Pretty much. That's a good way to put it. But I think we both agree, Sony buying Remedy, a good decision for both parties.
Yeah, I think it's. I think anyone buying Remedy
is a good
decision. But Sony definitely. I'm not saying they're like Quantic Dream, but I see how
it could fill that void.
Quantic Dream no longer being part of the stable. I can see why you'd see that as maybe a slightly Remedy-shaped hole.
Yeah.
How about that?
Are you surprised Microsoft didn't buy Remedy instead of like
bit.
Double Fine or one of the other studios it bought?
I mean, maybe a little bit, but like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why you would not buy. But again, it's like if they really were all that thrilled by Remedy, we'd probably have a third Alan Wake game.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the truth of the matter is that
we-
Remedy's games haven't sold very
I guess
well.
it'd be a second Alan Wake game, right?
It was in development and then put on hold and.
Because what's the American Wasteland was.
They also just bought back the rights to Alan Wake, which makes me believe their next game is going to be Alan Wake 2.
I mean, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like Alan Wake.
Underrated game for sure.
But so I feel like if Microsoft was that interested enough to buy them, we would have been seeing more output from them. And yes, they did.
If you're Remedy, are you pissed that they didn't buy you?
No. I mean,
maybe they did try. Maybe they just couldn't work out a deal.
If I were Remedy, I can't say with any first-hand experience. I don't know what Remedy's kind of corporate culture or outlook is, but like, if I would think if I were Remedy and I'm joining the stable, the team, the company that got games like God of War and Spider-Man made, I'd be like, this is very good for us.
Yep, for sure.
Especially because they already make games that kind of are along those lines in terms of production value and cinematic.
Sony's already proven it's patient. It'll let you finish your game they'll release it when it's done, not whenever it's half-baked.
Yeah.
And I think every studio likes that. So
even when it's not like a big crazy franchise that everybody cares about, like Days Gone.
Right.
Days Gone had. I mean, Days Gone wasn't exactly finished when it launched, but it was clearly better when it launched than it would have been.
Could you imagine what it would have been like in November or whatever?
Yeah. So, I would be pretty positive if I was working at Remedy right now. I'd feel like we were on a good path.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Crash Team Racing. This game's also been out for a bit.
Well, you're going to talk about it because
have you not touched it?
I will not play this crap.
Did you? Did you play it back in the day?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I had a roommate who had it. And we played a little bit. Do
you like kart racers at all?
I do like kart racers. I just hate Crash Bandicoot. I don't like looking at him.
I don't like him as a character either.
I don't like looking at any of the characters in that franchise, and I have zero nostalgia, zero warm, fuzzy feelings for that character or anything related to him.
I would agree. And we talked about Insane Trilogy, how we weren't fans of the Crash game. And I agree with you.
Like, I recognize this is a good kart game,
characters and the art, everything. You don't have to play as Crash. There's tons of players you can control, but none of them are appealing. Mm-hmm. They're all just these weird, like they look like concept art that should have been rejected at some point. That's the art style in general of the Crash franchise, and it does carry over here. But if you can look past all that stuff, it's really good. Mm-hmm. It's really good. It took me a long time to come to grips with the power sliding, because they use this weird, goofy mechanic and it's the only game that uses it. It's like back in the day when they launched the first game, they're like, well, we can't just steal the power sliding from Mario Kart 64.
Yes,
so
you can.
You should have. You absolutely should have, because it's vastly superior to how the system works. But otherwise, it is a gigantic game. I'm like you. I played a little bit of it back in the day. Not enough to have an informed opinion on it at all. But holy crap, this game is just loaded with content. And it also reminds me a little bit of the PlayStation 1 and 64 era, where they had CD-ROMs. They could hold a lot of stuff on those things. And a lot of games like this would have more tracks, would have more maps.
I think a bunch of the stuff on this is actually new.
It is.
To it.
Yeah, it is. But still,
they made it like an old school game.
Yeah, there's like 30-some tracks in this game. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going. And not only that, the modes and the options in it are, I mean, honestly, it probably even stomps Mario Kart 8 in that realm. Because there's a story mode.
You're not the only one I've seen say that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a story mode like Diddy Kong Racing. There's also the traditional cup tournaments like you play in Mario Kart. There's time trials. There's Ghost to race against. There's online play. Now, I will say this. The online play is a little weird the way it's set up. There aren't that many options as far as setting up the races pre-race. That's something they could fix, I think, pretty easily. But the way it is right now, it's a little disappointing. But you're racing with like 7 other players, like 8-player online multiplayer races across all those tracks that also can be mirrored. There's battles both online and offline. I mean, it is just a big old hunk of kart racing love. But ultimately, I think I still feel like Mario Kart 8 is the reigning champ of kart racers just because of the mechanics alone, which is a big part of any game. But look, if you don't own a Switch or you're not a Nintendo fan, but you like racing games and you really like kart racing games, go buy this game. It's also not full price. It's like $40. If
Try to imagine being someone who likes kart racers but doesn't like Nintendo games.
I know.
Like,
it's a small audience.
That sounds like a hard life.
No, you're right. Like the Venn diagram of that is the center is very small.
Yeah. But
look, the truth is, a lot of people who haven't owned Nintendo consoles all along may not even know if they like kart racing.
Right. And like the Sega, the Team Sonic thing was very disappointing. So
yeah, it was like a step back from the game before.
Transformed is probably my favorite kart racer of all time.
Wow.
As speaking as someone who has no tremendous affection for the Mario Kart characters, but does have one for the Sega. The new follow-up not good.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with that game, and they delayed that a couple times too.
Yeah, like I recognize that Crash Team Racing is clearly top of the heap, like in terms of something like that. I just can't. I just can't have
I cannot abide.
I can't have that in my house. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking when they designed all the characters for that IP, but I agree with you 1,000%. Yeah. But when the rubber hits the road, it's a really good game.
Oh yeah, I mean I believe everyone who says it is. Just I'm good with Mario Kart 8. I don't because you know what? At least Mario has a neck.
Yeah, the characters in this game are not appealing at all. And as you go and you unlock, like you race bosses in the adventure mode, just like Diddy Kong.
Like I'd love to see Mario Kart adopt more of that kind of stuff, like from Diddy Kong or from this.
Yeah, for sure.
idea. And like,
because it has the universe to back it up and make something compelling. Yeah.
I mean, hell, you could branch. You could do what Sega did and just include everyone from. You could do Smash Brothers with racing.
Yeah. It's true.
Probably shouldn't call it Race Brothers. That's
loaded. Smash Kart's a little more.
Smash Cars. That's a game already. Remember that?
I said Smash Kart.
Oh, Smash Kart. Okay, remember Smash Cars?
I do. Yeah.
What was it?
Very descriptive title.
Yeah. What was Sessler said? You couldn't have named this game more descriptively if you'd called it Press Buttons.
Speaking of which, that's a good time to mention there is a Twitch channel right now that is showing X-Play.
Yeah, old X-Play, old G4 and old Tech TV stuff.
What's the handle?
Technical Television.
That's pretty awesome.
I thought that was pretty good. Yeah.
Anyway, if you're fans of the old Tech TV and G4 days, he literally or she is just rolling old shows.
He rolls all these old shows. He's collected them. He's like edits them together into like a reel, and he adds period appropriate commercials.
Yeah,
at the commercial breaks. Like so, there's classic commercials from like. 2002,
The early aughts.
2003,
Yeah.
2004. Earlier today, he ran the GameCube launch episode of Extended Play.
So he's going back before.
So you're talking like
Xbox.
November 2001.
Yeah.
I mean, that was I had been on I had been a producer on the show for 2 months at that point.
But if you watch it, you'll see Matt and I in a lot of the sketches and our writings all over it.
Well, back when we were all mid-20s babies.
Yep. Back in the day.
It's cool. I mean, yeah, watch it before NBC Universal figures it out and shuts it down.
It's going to get shut down.
I don't know. It's
Eventually.
been running for a while. I mean...
What, a week and a half
they
now?
don't, no, it's like almost 3 weeks now.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't think they care. He's actually... I think he's concerned about being shut down for the commercials.
Oh,
more than the actual shows.
The content ID, yeah. Although those commercials, you can usually...
Well, what was the one... was one of the ones that aired was... it was your... Wakeboarding Unleashed one where you did extreme
tricycling.
But during the extreme tricycling and all
walking.
that, in extreme walking, you did Walking Unlimited or whatever.
Yeah.
You used the song from the Panama, Van Halen's Panama from the game.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's gonna get us shut down.
Yeah, my segment. It didn't get us shut down at Tech TV. We ran that shit and nothing ever happened.
Well, what was the? Somebody was asking about the opening, like the Open from San Francisco era, and I'm like, they're like, how come it changed when? This wasn't on that chat, but someone asked me before in a separate thing, like why did they change the intro when you moved to LA? And I'm like, well, primarily I think it was because G4's legal department figured out that every single element of that opening was copyrighted material from some game that had been lifted. Because Tech TV's legal department did not give a fuck.
No.
Like, they did not care.
Yep.
Like, we just threw the Duel of the Fates from Phantom
They
Menace
did talk to me about
there.
using Panama, though. I remember that conversation. Yeah. And I was like, it's in the game. And they're like, it's in the game. And I'm like, yep. They're like, okay.
It's in the game, you're good. And for like Duel of the Fates, for the Jedi fight we did, like we just called LucasArts and we're like, hey, can we use this? They're like, fine, we don't care. Like,
no, they wouldn't do that anymore.
No. I've had to license Star Wars music since then, and it is a very different process.
Yep,
now,
different time, different era. But anyway.
But it's a fun little channel to kind of check out just because it's legit.
Well, you can see what Matt and I poured our hearts and souls into
shows.
for
and
a
it's
long
fun
time.
to watch all these shows, man. We reviewed some obscure shit.
We had to.
Like, because
I had to fill the show
yeah.
with, and it got to the point where you're like, oh, we have this PSP game.
Yeah.
Like, that's really how it got.
Well, the thing that always strikes me is the obscure PC strategy games.
Yeah.
Like, there's all these, like, weird, like, RTSs that I haven't thought about probably since we cut those segments. And, like,
we had to fill the show.
And there's a lot of old, he has a lot of the old E3 2003, 2004 shows. And I've tried to explain to them that, like, in the chat that, like, yeah, so we shot all these there, and then we'd send the tapes up, and we'd fly back, and it would air a week later.
Yeah.
Like E3 coverage was a week later, and that was considered fast.
Oh yeah, it was like lightning.
And you watch the E3 shows and watch the lower thirds and all the CGs. There's typos all through them because we made them so quickly. There's, I think, Vitua Racing at one point, Baldur's Gate with a U randomly in there. Yeah. Oh, and one of them, I think one of the E3 2004, the best of show. It starts with like the E3 like special graphics package, and the side of the panel of the clamp frame, it's just HTML code that wasn't like somebody left a bracket out or something. And the side of the graphics package is just text. It's just like all this like weird code. It's
when your series producer is out to lunch.
Pretty much. When you've all been working for 6 days straight, and then you fly home and work through the weekend, and you have to deliver it by Monday afternoon.
But we were the only ones who were providing video coverage from E3.
Vic Lucas was at Electro Playground, but he didn't have turnaround that fast, and he would do.
He had to go back to Canada.
Yeah, and he would do one show because they aired once a week, and we did 3 shows a week, so we had more.
Yep.
Time.
Now everything's just instantaneous.
Hell, we even put Morgan and Adam in tuxes and an evening gown for the best of thing that one year, and you see them like walking through the show floor doing the raps, and everyone's looking at them like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah, those were different days. But anyway, check it out. What is it again? Technical Television?
Technical Television.
It's great.
Not Tech TV. Yep. Technical Television.
Yep, you can see what Matt and I poured our hearts and souls into for a long, long time.
And have a nice like kind of trip down game memory road. There's some
value in those episodes
stuff in there.
still.
There's some stuff you haven't thought about in a while.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk
about... and if you're really good, you can listen to the scripts and try to figure out which one of us wrote which one.
Yeah.
Or what? I think I wrote every Star Wars review for like 10 years. Yeah. So watch the Star Wars reviews and see if you can pick up the jokes that I still use on this show that I used to use in scripts back then. Because I haven't come up with any new material since about '99, if we're actually being honest.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Samurai Shodown, an old fighting franchise that has been revived.
Yep.
Traditionally a 2D fighting franchise, although almost all the recent ones have been polygonal visuals. People may not realize this franchise has actually kind of been going all along.
Oh, yeah. Samurai Shodown 1 was what, 92, 93?
That sounds about right.
Because I used to play it in the arcade I worked at in high school with my boss, who was terrible at it, but he would pick Haomaru, because Haomaru's thing is he's got a couple of those hard slashes that can take half your life off.
Right, one slash.
And he would, every once in a while, just through luck, he would beat me. And then he'd turn to the whole rest of the store and scream, "By the mighty gods of thunder, I have prevailed." And everyone's like, "Oh, you lost to Larry again."
Yeah.
And old arcade culture was great.
It was, absolutely.
So this one is, it's polygonal, but it's a 2D game. It's a 2D fighter. Oddly enough,
there's kind of 3D elements in it, where like sidestepping.
You can sidestep. I mean, that's always been that goes back to King of Fighters, goes back to Fatal Fury.
Yeah.
But with the multiple planes of fighting. Oddly enough, like the bonus costumes for several of the characters are bad 3D models of them from like the older games.
Really?
Yeah, like Haomaru, I have it's a DLC, and I think Nakaruru both have their their costume is a polygonal model from like Samurai Shodown 5, which like it looks awful. I mean, I guess it looks like ironically awful. But I'm like, you want to give me like 2D versions of the old guys, sure, but like this.
Yeah, the characters look a lot different than they did in the tradition. A lot of people, when they think of Samurai Shodown, they have very specific images of the characters in their mind of what they're supposed to look like, and I feel like a lot of the characters in this one do not kind of ring true with that.
Oh, no, I don't agree with that at all.
Really?
I think they all look very recognizable to me.
Maybe it's the art style that they're using.
The art style's a little different. I mean, the art style is pretty in line with Samurai Shodown 3, I would say. It's Samurai Shodown got busier visually as you went through the 2D editions. Samurai Shodown 3 was like everybody just had like scarves and robes and ribbons everywhere. This feels very similar to that to me. I think the only character I would say is really different is Galford. Doesn't look the same.
He looks way different.
Which in part is, I think, because he was originally basically a palette swap of Hanzo Hattori,
right,
with a different head and a dog. So I think he is still pretty similar to Hanzo, but I think they are trying to differentiate him a little bit. Charlotte is interesting in that Charlotte has always been kind of a full armor character who was sort of and now she's
a fencer.
Yeah, she still is, but she's showing a lot of leg, which is unusual
surprise,
for the character.
Surprise.
And everyone else, I think, is pretty true to what they always looked like. There's a couple classics missing, which I think will probably be in DLC as we move forward. A couple of new characters. A guy who uses like 8 swords at once or something. I haven't messed with him very much. And there's actually, what's his name? The Kabuki guy.
Oh yeah, what is his name?
Kenshiro, I think.
Yeah, that guy always used to freak me out.
He looks very different. He's a very, very big change.
That's probably a good change.
Yeah, I mean, because he was more of an E Honda sort of character.
He was like creepy.
He's still creepy. He's still real creepy. He's hopping around on one foot and doing all crazy. No, I think visually it nails it pretty well.
What about the fighting? What is it like?
So the fighting is very different. It's not a direct descendant of Samurai Shodown in terms of, because Samurai Shodown was traditionally was a standard 2D fighting game in the SNK mold that had the added interest of the weaponry. So the bladed weapons basically let you do some really major damage. So it was kind of a seesaw battle in a way that, like, oh my god, you got really hurt, but if you can get the right move in, you can hurt them really hard back.
Damage,
I mean, the fortunes could turn on a dime, basically. Yeah. Now that is still true of this game, but the interesting thing they've done with it is it's a very reactive game. It's not really like anything else that I've played this gen in the fighting game realm. It is much more about observing your opponent, figuring out what they're going to do, and reacting to them in a way that other fighting games just aren't.
It's not like this insane ding 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 where both characters are bouncing all over the screen.
There's a lot of staring.
Yeah, it's very thoughtful.
Which is true to the subject matter not in terms of how actual historical samurai fought, but in terms of how samurai films, like the Chambara sort of samurai soap opera films, treat it, and that's what Samurai Shodown draws from anyway, and always has, with kind of the over the top presentation and all the the traditional Japanese like songs in the background, and everything almost feels theatrical in this series. It always has, and that's still here. And there's a lot of like, you have all these different defensive options, where you have you can block like like any other thing. But you can also just defense, which means blocking the instant the thing hits you, and that gives you a better opening. It gives you a blue flash, and like they fly back. You have a bigger opening for recovery to punish them. You can hit 2 buttons together and dodge one hit. So you just
is that the side step?
That's where you kind of back into the background a little bit, and it just goes past you.
Right.
And doing that gives you an advantage if you pull that out at the right timing. You can deflect. You can do a counter deflect where you do like a fireball motion forward and hit 2 buttons together. And if you do it right as they hit you, with a right level sword attack, you deflect them again, and you get a huge opening for that. You have you can also put your sword down. You can lose your sword for various moves, or you can put your sword down intentionally, and if you are unarmed, you fight with punches and kicks, which are obviously
that's cool.
They're faster, but they're weaker. You usually don't want to do that with most characters, but if you do find yourself unarmed, you can do what's called a blade catch. If you time it right, when your opponent throws a sword hit at you, you catch their blade, you get a little cinematic sequence, and you disarm them, and you throw the blade across the arena, and they have to go get it, and then that gives you, since you're unarmed as well, now you're on even terms. Who can
Can you pick up their weapon and use it?
No,
you can't.
You can only pick up your own.
Okay.
But if you can time that right and throw their blade away and pick your blade up, you have a tremendous advantage.
Yeah.
So the defensive mind games are as complex as the offensive ones, which is unusual in a modern fighting game, in my opinion.
Just to concentrate that much on defense in general is out of step.
Because the damage is so high. That's the thing, is like there's not huge combos.
It's like the Dark Souls of fighting games.
Sort of. There's not huge combos in this game. Like I think the highest combo I've ever seen is like 6.
Wow.
And that's mostly character based. Like Genshiro is that his name? Genshiro?
I think so. Yeah.
He can do like some pretty good combos, just inherent to his various moves. Other characters don't combo much at all. You're just looking for the opening. You're looking for the mistake, and you can do whatever move gets you the best damage and gives you the best opening. And you're looking at you're doing 2-3 hit combos for the most part and getting huge damage off. And if you're Haomaru, I mean, his heavy like forward slash, which takes forever to wind up, so it's hard to get hit by it. But if you do get hit by it, say goodbye to half your life.
Wow.
Like, it's big. And then you've got super moves. So you've got a rage meter that fills up as you get hit and as you do damage. And once that fills up, it changes sort of the damage that's done. And I'm not actually fully versed on what that is yet, but you can hit all 4 buttons and activate like a rage mode, which gives you a bunch of bonuses. And while you're in that rage mode, you can do a special move, super special move. I think it's a super special move, or it's the blade flip move. I can't remember which one, the terminology, but basically it's a super move that everybody has the same. And you sort of flash. You've probably seen it in the trailers. You flash past them, everything kind of goes black and white, and they go and fall down, and it does like that much damage. It's huge. It's like 70% damage or something. You can do that once per match.
Okay.
And whether you hit it or not, whether you hit with it or not, your rage meter goes away for the rest of the match.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a huge risk reward on that one. And you can do that anytime. Like you can do that in the first round, and you don't have a rage meter for the rest of the match if you want to.
But you've won a round, probably.
But you did get you a round probably if you landed it. And then you've got the other move. I think it's the blade flip move. Is can be done outside of it. It's a more complex input. But it's it's a character per character move. Like there's a little cinematic super move thing with it, and you disarm them at the end of it.
Okay.
So that's a huge one too.
So you can do a lot of damage and disarm them.
Yeah, the damage isn't as good as the other one, but it disarms them, and it's fairly demoralizing.
Yeah, sure.
So there's those options are in there, but most of the matches I see really just play out with normals, and occasionally opportunistically using like kind of the rage meter stuff. And in fact. It's so unorthodox that Justin Wong did a good kind of tutorial, like beginner's tutorial video on YouTube for it. And one of the things that he emphasized, and I agree with him through my limited experience, and obviously it would be stupid for me to disagree with Justin Wong about just about anything. But what he brought up is something I also noticed, which is it's never worth blocking low.
Oh.
Low attacks are, for almost all characters, are so weak and do not combo. So it's always better to block the standing hit, because the standing hit is going to lead into something much more damaging.
Or it's just going to damage you. Or just damage you in
general.
Place.
Yeah, in general. Like a standing heavy is always going to be twice as bad as a low heavy, so forget it. Don't even bother blocking low. He's like, I never block low except in very specific situations. And most of the low attacks you're going to get are going to be kick attacks, which are like sweeps and stuff. And you're talking about infinitesimal amounts of damage from that. Like all it does is it puts you in a worse position, but at least you didn't get hit by an overhead. You know, like getting accidentally hit by an overhead because you're blocking low is infinitely worse than getting hit with whatever could be hit low. And that is a very unusual strategic situation for a fighting game, to not worry about blocking low because everything else is just too dangerous.
You can't risk it.
So I've had online matches that ended in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Not like rounds, and in 5 seconds, both sides. You know, like you're always just trying to feel each other out. The online play is pretty good. For a game that's so split-second timing, like I haven't really run into situations where I felt like I lost because it wasn't responding to me. It usually feels pretty snappy.
What about modes?
Tons of modes.
What about but is there like a single-player story mode?
Yeah, there's a story mode, complete with SNK boss.
Oh wow.
Who I didn't find all that difficult to beat, but I've played a lot of SNK games. I feel like if you're just playing like, I'm going to play the Samurai Shodown game, the last boss in this game is going to kill your ass. Like, you're going to have to figure it out, basically. SNK bosses are like that. But every character's got their own kind of little story, and they have little intro and outro things with narration about them and who they are, what they're doing.
But do you just fight through like a ladder of opponents?
Yeah, you fight through a set of opponents. Nothing particularly special to that. There's survival mode, there's a time trial mode, there's a ghost battle mode, which is interesting, where like the game will gather data on how you play different characters and you make that available online, and you can go through and pick to fight against various ranked people's ghosts from online play and play them, and if you like them, you can save that ghost, and then you can go into the Iron Man mode and play either a 10 or a 50 or a 100 fighter marathon battle using drawing from all the ghosts you've saved.
Interesting. The ghosts, I was watching you play that mode. The ghosts do not seem particularly aggressive.
Well, the ghosts you were seeing were the built-in SNK ghosts, which I think are just sort of there to make sure you have some kind of AI opponent to play with. And as you fill out your roster, as you get more and more online ghosts from real people, they play better.
It's an interesting idea.
It's sort of like Forza, but with that. There's a nice
fight-a-tar.
Yeah, sort of. There's a nice Virtua Fighter did something like that.
It did, yeah.
There's a nice feature where if you're looking for like ranked matches or whatever, you can set it to look for that and just go play any other mode, and then we'll just do it because oddly enough, it takes a while to get into matches on this game. It feels like not a lot of people are playing it. Maybe. Certainly, like you play like Street Fighter or something, and like it's just like boom, you're in. Like go, like, as many people as you can wait. But like so this one definitely has a thing where it's like set it to matchmaking, go play some other mode or for a while, and like eventually someone will pop in. The only downside
that does not bode well for the game's future.
The only downside is that like I was playing like the 100-man Iron Man thing, and I got the matchmaking.
You were at like 88 and
no, it wasn't
that
far.
Started?
But I popped in, and once the match was over, I realized like, it doesn't just. It's not like Street Fighter V, where Street Fighter V will just dump you back in whatever single player thing you were doing.
Yeah, it's gone.
No, it's gone.
Oh, that sucks.
So don't set it to matchmake and then go try to beat the survival mode, because you'll just lose your place.
Now, is this game full priced?
Yes, it is.
Is it worth full price?
If you're into fighting games and you like Samurai Shodown, I would say it is.
That's a pretty small market in 2019. Though.
It is, but I'm part of it. And,
so am I.
The one caveat I will say is if you bought it before June 30th, the season pass was included for free.
Wow, too late now.
And now I think it's like $80.
Whoa, my gosh!
If you want the game plus the
what
season
a
pass.
deal that was!
So it was like $20. And here's another weird thing. So I got it on PlayStation because all my fighting sticks are PlayStation. But at one point I was on Xbox and I was looking through this, and it had recommended for you, whatever, and it had Samurai Shodown Season Pass free. And I was like, because there's a separate thing, right? And like I was like, oh really? Because I don't know if I'll ever get this on on Xbox, but
Yeah.
if I can get the season pass for free right now and maybe
Might as well snag it now.
buy it for $15 in 2 years, like why not?
Seriously though, yeah.
And so I did it, and it let me do it.
Wow.
So like
Without owning the base game?
without owning the game. Yeah.
Pro tip.
So you can't do it now, but like.
So you would only recommend this to people like us who enjoyed the old games?
Or like you want something kind of different in the fighting game realm, or in like a more defensive game that, because it doesn't feel like anything else. That's the thing I like about it, is it doesn't feel like anything else, and that's sort of what Samurai Shodown should be, because it didn't feel like anything else at the time back in the day either. And now, like, I think if you just made another Samurai Shodown game, it would feel sort of like itself, whereas this feels like more of an evolution in terms of what you could do with this premise and this property. So I would actually say go look up, if you're kind of interested but don't know if you want to spend the money, I would say go look up videos from like CEO, the CEO tournament that happened at Daytona Beach a couple weeks ago, where Justin Wong won. I think he won the whole tournament for Samurai Shodown there. Look up the videos of that and see how it plays, and watch how the kind of the back and forth works with it, and see if it's something you'd be interested in, because it's really not, it's not just like Street Fighter with swords. There's more to it, and I think it's a pretty cool take on it. And they're going to support it. I think there's new DLC and new stuff coming through February.
$80 worth
through February. Well, $20 worth.
All right. Oh, okay. So you're saying the whole thing costs $80?
Yeah.
I thought you were saying the season pass alone they're trying to sell for $80.
The season pass is $20.
Oh, okay.
Now that June 30th is
That's why I freaked out. I was like $80.
But it's $80 to buy the game with the season pass.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes more sense. All right. So there you go. Samurai Shodown is there a Switch version?
No.
I
don't think so.
So it's PS4, Xbox One. Is there a PC version?
I haven't looked at PC.
Okay. So at least Xbox One and PS4.
Definitely, yeah, Xbox One. I would be surprised if there's no PC version.
Is SNK usually good about having that day and date, though? Seems like a lot of their games kind of show up on PC later.
I don't really pay attention.
Yeah.
No, it is on. It's published for PlayStation 4, Arcade, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Microsoft Windows, and Google Stadia.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's for everything then.
So, yeah, I guess eventually everything.
Yep.
I figure it's not on Stadia just yet.
Probably not.
Okay, so, yeah.
It has to launch first.
Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are already out.
Switch and PC are coming.
Arcade, it came out. Yeah, Switch and PC are coming winter 2019. Arcade is supposed to be this summer in 2019, probably only in Japan. And Stadia will
whenever
arrive in its own good time.
Probably next year sometime. Yeah. All right.
So, I dig it. I'm not going to tell you to spend $60 on it, but I think it's worth a look.
Okay.
It's not just another fighting game.
I think you made that abundantly clear during our discussion. Absolutely. It sounds like something different, which is kind of hard to find in this day and age. All right, let's move on to our last topic of this episode. We're going to talk about probably the biggest game as far as generating revenue from the last couple of weeks, and that is Super Mario Maker 2.
And generating tweets.
Yeah.
A lot of arguing over which levels or what level or this level is this level, what's good level or bad level, plagiarized level.
Oh, really?
There's been a few, like, it's like, this is just like this level. Yeah, it's a Mario level. Some people can have the same ideas. It's not like...
It's not like they're stealing from each other.
And even if they are...
Who cares? Who cares? It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think there are some people, though, that get these games and think that I can make a level and I can, like, make something out of myself based upon the levels that I'm making in this game. You think that's misguided?
Well, as Morgan Freeman once said, good luck.
Yeah, maybe not take it so seriously. Have you played this at all?
Yeah, I played a little bit of it.
What are your initial impressions, first blush?
It's fun. It's Mario. Story mode's weird.
It sucks. I think it sucks.
Well, it feels like a mobile game.
It does.
It's like you're just grinding for coins to rebuild a castle.
Yeah, it's so weird to play the levels.
Like, it wouldn't hurt any of you fuckers to go out and do some jobs either. Yeah. You know, like
it changes how you play the levels.
I didn't knock it over. You're the one who left the frickin' reset rocket laying around.
Like I hate that the gold coins drive everything in that mode because it makes you play the levels differently.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, you're just looking to try to get as many coins as possible, and anything else doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, so for those of you who don't know, or maybe you didn't watch the grind. Basically, how the story.
How dare you?
Yeah, how dare you? The way the story mode works is Matt kind of laid it out. Like you're rebuilding Peach's castle piece by piece, and each piece of the castle requires X number of gold coins.
Then once you do that, it requires you to go do X number of levels before the It really is like a mobile game.
It is, yeah.
Like
it's like a squirrel wheel.
Kind of annoyed me.
Yeah, I don't like the story mode at all, to be honest with you. But I don't think most people are buying this to play a story.
No, I think most people are buying just sort of either to make levels or to just jump in and just play online levels forever.
Did you build a level at all?
No.
I
don't have the brain for that, really.
I built one, and I'll never build another. I mean, seriously. Like, it took a long... Look, these tools are about as intuitive as they could be to make a Mario game. And the way the options work and the way the control... It's all about as good as it can be. It's still way too much time and investment for...
What I'm going to do with this game, I'm going to go to the online thing. I'm going to go pick that 100-level course or 10-level course or whatever option where it just loads up things and lets you play it. And I'm just going to do... That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That's what that game's for me.
How... And look, this isn't unique to Super Mario Maker 2. It was the same issue with Super Mario Maker 1. But how do you feel about the user-created levels?
I mean, there's good ones, there's bad ones.
Do you think that the sorting options are good enough to make sure you're not consuming crap? They're better than they were in the first game.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really played much that I thought was really bad. I just don't...
Really?
I don't care about...
I played a lot that were really bad.
I haven't played too much. I maybe spent an hour on this game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not has not been something I've focused on. I didn't have my Switch
with
me, so... Oddly, I had a PlayStation 4, but I did not have my Switch.
Yeah.
But it was... it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, that is
fine.
I hate when we describe games that way, but this is one of those games that's fine.
I mean,
and when we say fine, it means it's pretty much exactly what you expected it to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I can't imagine anyone who's getting this game doesn't already know what they expect it to be, and it is definitely that.
Yeah.
So.
It's weird.
And look, it's like it's on the Switch. Like, you don't have to use your Wii U for this anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real advantage.
Yeah, I mean, the level sorting is better than it was. It's still lacking because you can't really sort by style or type.
Yeah, it is. It was kind of hard when I first loaded the browser up to sort of figure out, I just want to play a Mario level. And
right.
It's like, well, is this what is this? This is
this is one of those ones where you move forward and it carries you through half.
Yeah,
or this is one of these goofy ones where it's not really about platforming, it's about finding a hidden key somewhere that unlocks this door and then warping through 80 other doors to get to this one room.
Or it's like there's a pathway through this level, but it's a to the pixel button press and good luck finding it.
Or the person who created this managed to finish it once, which is all you have to do. Meaning I could sit here and try it a billion times and never finish it. Like I feel like I waste my time a lot in this game. And sometimes you play a level that's really great, and then you get to the end and there's some goofy thing like right at the end. It's like, and basically the user is like, no, I don't want you to finish this. It's like, you made it all the way through. You've made it through 2 checkpoints. This is basically the last step. But nope, there's this thing I'm going to throw in here that there's no hint that it's going to be there. You have nothing to build upon to know that you should do it. You're just not going to finish this level. And I think that's really my biggest issue with these games in general is there's no building of concepts as a player. There's no building like your database of knowledge on how the game works if you haven't been doing it for the last 30 years. And I do not have an encyclopedic knowledge of 2D Mario games. So I do not know what a lot of the blocks do, what the behaviors are, what the death conditions are for a lot of stuff. So I'll be playing a user level and I'll be like, oh, I'm on this rising platform and there's a platform above me. I think I'll just go, oh, no, that kills me. And you just do this over and over and over again. I'm sure if you're like a Mario savant, you can probably play these levels just like that. I'm not. I don't remember what everything does. And a lot of it just ends up being trial and error. And when you're playing user-created levels, they don't understand how to build a progression of activities so that you learn certain things so that when you get to this part later on, you at least have a chance to make it through.
I do think there's sort of a more like the community that has grown up around the Mario makers does seem to lean harder into the whole I want you to appreciate like the devilishly annoying twist I threw on this that made it hard for you to finish.
Yeah.
As opposed to people that just make fun Mario levels.
Right. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for fun Can they give me a sorting option that's fun? Because a lot of this stuff isn't fun.
They do kind of need a not an asshole.
Yeah,
like level
not
section.
mean-spirited filter. Please give me that one. Because like most people, I think, they sort by what's most popular. Mm-hmm. And it seems to be the most popular ones are the speedrun levels. And I do like them. They're fun. But in a lot of those, like, you perfect it, you get to the end, there's the finish line, and like right before time's up. It's like, what do you mean time's up? I held run the entire time and ran the whole way, never flubbed the jump.
But if you spin jumped and did this over the top of the screen, you would have bounced
that.
along that, and then that would have saved you 5 seconds.
Screw that. I'll never make another level. I made way more in the first Mario Maker because I felt like I needed to. Once I kind of used the new tools in creating one level, and this is something that I did that I also think other users make a big mistake of. You try to throw everything into one level. Mm-hmm. Again, it's not the building of concepts. It's like, oh, these are all the tools they gave me. I'm just going to throw it all into a blender and see what happens. And I did the same thing. Like, I look back at my level and I was like, I have elements from like 5 generations of Mario. Like, I was like, I'm not even uploading this level because people will hate it. The same way I hate a lot of the levels that are uploaded, and I'm like, I'm not adding to the pile of trash. It's even though the tools are very intuitive, it still takes a really long time to build a level, let alone a level that's actually smart and fun and unique and different. And I do stand in awe.
It's uncomfortably like a dating app. In a lot of ways. It's like, I don't know, this one looks okay. It's like, oh my god, what the fuck?
Yeah, I need to swipe left or right. They need that option in there.
Like, no.
But I will say this, like, if you are a Mario nerd, and like you know everything about Mario, and you can just look at a block or a platform or an enemy and know immediately what they're going to do. And
or hell, just know what the name is.
Or, yeah, exactly.
That's one thing I've learned is I don't know the name of any of these enemies.
Because they don't really advertise them in the games. No. Like, some you've just kind of learned, like, but yeah, most of them, it's like, I'm like, oh, it's called that? Interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
closest I've learned, I think, is like I think Super Mario World, they show all the enemies with their names next to them.
Right, they do.
The end.
Yeah, that's
right. Like the only one
But then that taught you enemies that would be in future games as well. Yeah. It was like a big help. But, so would you buy this game if you're not interested in creating at all?
Well, I did.
And you're not interested in creating?
No. So I did, yeah. I probably wouldn't if Mario Maker 1 was available on the Switch.
Yeah, which is never going to happen now.
No, obviously.
And there's no need for it. So,
but I think having this game in some form on every Nintendo platform going forward is kind of a given.
Yeah, so it's just going to happen.
I'm fine with it.
Do you think they'll release another one for Switch, or do you think that they'll just add DLC? Like, here's new parts.
I think they'll just add to it.
Yeah.
I do think calling it 2 is weird.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, you're going to keep doing this? Like, the next one going to be 3? Like, it doesn't make any sense. How much
They're also going to run out of stuff.
Right, how much further can you push this?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, this is kind of really the end game.
I mean, really, the only next step is Super Mario Maker 3D.
Yeah. And I would be all over that. Like, even though it'd probably be even more difficult to do.
Oh, that would be crazy. You're talking about actual game dev at that point.
You're starting with the X and Y axis and all that. That's where it starts to get complicated.
I mean, you're looking at a game where you can make like Mario 64, Mario Galaxy, Mario Sunshine, Mario Odyssey levels.
They may never release that because then they'd be like, why would people ever buy Mario
what's left?
I mean, you give the tools to everybody. Eventually, they're going to stop buying the games that
and we're going to be on our 5th Luigi's Mansion before you know it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think this is it's solid. I don't know enough about the game design part of it to like critique whether this block does this or that. I know there's a lot of consternation about like certain changes and little quirks that that worked in Mario Maker the same way they worked in the original games that don't work the same way in this one. Mm-hmm. And there's people it's like, well, that couldn't have been a bug because they replicated it so many times, and like, well, maybe it is. So maybe they'll update. I think there's still some updating and still some tweaking that Nintendo's going to be doing to this to kind of make it the way the community wants it and the way the designers want it. But like, it's fun. It's nice to have. It's nice to just.
It's endless Mario.
Yeah, Mario whenever you need it. So.
and never the
cool
same
with it.
thing twice.
Yeah.
There's already just like billions of courses.
And the online stuff it is pretty snappy. So it's like
The online play blows.
If I mean like downloading a level.
And, it's really fast.
And so it's like if I load up something I don't like, it's not like I lost
a
lot of time or anything. It's just like you'll go get another one.
Oh, it's like a second. You have the level. I mean,
I haven't played anything actually multiplayer online.
The online multiplayer is broken.
Oh yeah.
It's literally just It either runs in slow motion, or it's like a slideshow. But like the first time I booted up,
Also
I jumped
retro.
and it went boring. It's like, what is this? And the modes are dumb. It's like you race to the end, but like some of the levels are like these levels where you go through like warp portals, and you have to go through like this portal that takes you to this room, and you go through that one. And what I found was I would just stand in the room where there's multiple doors and let everybody else run through it all and figure it out, and then have the guy come and go in there. I just follow him in the door. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, again, it's one of the drawbacks of having kind of user-created, because they incorporate that stuff in there as well, like user-created levels. It just, the netcode is so bad. Again, a side effect of the Switch not having an Ethernet port. When you don't put an Ethernet port in, people aren't going to buy the dongle that I have. They're going to play through Wi-Fi, and that's what happens. You have horrible lag. It's unplayable right now. I don't know if they're even going to bother fixing it or if they're just going to trash it. I don't know, but do not look at online play as a feature for buying the game is what I would say. It's completely unfunctional.
All right.
But you would recommend people buy it? I don't know if I would, honestly.
If you know what, I can't imagine someone who's interested in this doesn't know what they're getting into.
I would say if you already have Super Mario Maker, I would not recommend buying this at full price. Because you still have endless Mario there.
Sort of, but you'd also still have to have your Wii hooked up. It depends what that's worth to you.
Wii U.
Wii U, yeah. Whatever.
More likely that the Wii U still hooked up, though, than the Wii.
Yes, much more.
But yeah, I would say if you
Unless you're a Just Dance fan.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a Wii U and Super Mario Maker and it's not like packed away in a storage facility,
or if like the Mario Maker is the only reason your Wii U is still hooked up.
Yeah.
Like this would be a good way to finally solve that problem.
That's true. That's a good point.
But
yeah. So
I like it. I like
it is. I like it. I
know it's a lot. It's a lot of money for basically like an occasional toy, basically. But like, I don't know. I don't mind it. It is what it is, and it does what it does, and
you're basically getting what you expect. There's no curveballs here.
Yeah. I also like I got it digitally, so I can always pull it up whenever I want.
Yep.
I dig it.
All right. It's time for our trailer.
I'm not saying it's not full of sadism, but
it is definitely.
It's
without a doubt.
It's fun.
Yep. All right. It's time for our trailer of the week. Since E3 has been over, there's not been a ton of big trailers. Kind of blew the load there at E3, but we got a good one today. In fact, Cuphead. Today was a big day for Cuphead.
Oh yeah, the sales announcement. Yeah.
Sales announcement. It sold 4 million copies. A new television show, I believe Netflix was announced today. And a couple days ago, they announced what we're going to show you right now, which is the last piece of DLC for Cuphead.
Unfortunately, pushed to next year.
Yeah, which was a shame, but not a surprise because
they said one of the reasons they're delaying it, is so they don't have to crunch on it.
Yeah.
So I'll accept that.
Good for them.
That's good.
I mean, the original game was delayed like 4 times or whatever, so it's not a surprise that they didn't get it done. And I think if you play the game, you can understand it's not as simple as making other
especially since it was originally just a boss rush game.
Right.
And they decided, people think this is going to be an actual game, actual platformer, we better put some levels in here.
I may have actually liked it better if it was just a boss rush game. That's the highlight of the game anyway.
It is. I don't want to go that far. I like the standard platforming levels.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
The boss stuff is definitely the star of the show.
Yeah,
it feels more complete with the full levels.
Definitely agree with that. Anyway, the last DLC, as Matt said, coming next year.
More Cuphead is never bad.
It's called Delicious Last Course, and here's the first trailer. All right, so again, 2020 for that. It's not coming out this year. You have to wait a bit for it. Maybe Maybe they pushed it to coincide with the TV show and other stuff.
Nah, I feel like you want to get this thing out
Also, I think that TV show is probably not coming out next year. If it's going to be hand animated like the game, that's a lot of work.
It could be late next year.
Yeah.
It depends.
We'll see.
Animation's faster than you think it is sometimes, especially with
the technologies they have now.
I think you can. I mean, it depends if they're going to do it full hand animated. It could take a while. It's sort of a lost art in some ways. But no, I would expect to see if they're announcing it now. I'd expect to see it mid to late next year.
Okay. So obviously we're not streaming this episode, but we did go on Twitter and on sifted.net to ask you guys for questions. And as always, you guys delivered. We have 5 questions from you guys we're going to answer. The first one comes from Twitter from @JGotYourBack. What do you think of companies like Bethesda not inviting certain press like Kotaku to their press conferences because of their negative coverage of their games, but filling the place with what looks like employees or people who get paid to quote-unquote look hyped and scream at every word said?
Well, I will say that hiring people to be excited in your crowd is not unique to Bethesda or the game industry or anyone.
Yeah.
Like almost anything like that.
And it's been happening for a long time.
We did it.
Yeah, we did.
Like everyone in the front rows of the G4 Live stuff for A3, all hired people. Like it's very, very common.
We hired hundreds of fake
In fact,
crowd.
for the last couple of years of X-Way, we had an in-studio audience, and that audience was a bunch of hired extras.
Yeah.
And because we thought it sounded ridiculous when it was just like 5 of us applauding.
Like they did on...
Like did on Attack of the Show.
Yeah.
I mean, also Attack of the Show didn't sound like we did because Attack of the Show had a much larger crew because they were a live show.
They actually had 15 people.
They had 15, 20 people in the studio room to begin with, so we had like 3. You know, we were not the same. We were live to tape. So we would bring in, I remember we bring in like 15 to 20 applauders and people. And Trey, who was the coordinating producer, he would get frustrated because he would have to like wrangle them and he'd try to get them to laugh and stuff on cue, and they just weren't doing it. And he on one time he complained about that on the phone to the woman that he would coordinate with to like hire the people, and she's like, "Oh, you need laughers?" He's like, "What? Like you need laughers?" He's like, "Is that a thing?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll send you our best laugher." And it was a different crew that showed up next time, and their whole thing was they went and went to tapings and laughed. They were good at fake laughing, and like that's who we used for the rest of the run of the show because they were great. And like these people, like they came to our taping at like 7 in, and then they went to it. Like they did like 4 shows a day. From there they drove over like to another show and they did another audience thing there, and they made that was their living. They made a good living doing that. Like this is a super common thing. Yeah. Now I don't know if that's what was happening at Bethesda's press conference this year with the people screaming, "Yeah!" like that. Yeah. I mean, some people in the audience there did look like they were employees or parts of certain teams. I think the ESO stuff was the ESO team just being very enthusiastic.
Yeah, for sure.
But the short answer is I don't care.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's
standard equipment. It's fine. Just be aware that that's happening and don't get suckered by it. I guess it's not. I mean, it's not fooling me. I don't think it's fooling you.
Yeah, the Spike VGAs, the whole crowd in the front, all paid for. The MTV Movie Awards, the VMAs, any award, the BET, any award show that Viacom did. CMT Awards, all paid audience.
Yeah. Oh, and I promise they're not taking Kotaku's seats or anything. Like
no,
they
just don't want Kotaku there. They just don't want
Kotaku there because not just because of the negative stuff, but because Kotaku prints leaks. That's the thing that annoys Bethesda and also Ubisoft about them is they publish leaks.
They do their jobs as journalists.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's really become so. This week on Pachter Factor, somebody asked a question. It was like, do leaks hurt game sales, and should journalists be doing it, and is there a benefit to do it? I mean, that's where we're at, Matt. We're at a place where people think journalists shouldn't be doing their jobs. Mm-hmm. I mean, it happened to me with Cyberpunk.
In service to marketing plans.
Right. I mean, the same thing happened with me with Cyberpunk and that goofy YouTuber that did some video about me. People don't want journalists to do their jobs anymore. They want the companies to be in control of everything because they worship the companies. And they want the companies to be in control because they know best. It's very weird, this place that we found ourselves in. I don't think the President of the United States subverting the press helps, just in general, with people's perception of journalists and the press.
I mean, this predates that.
It does, absolutely.
But it also has gotten worse and worse as these productions have gotten bigger and bigger, and you can't control what 400 people working on your press conference thing are telling anyone.
I had people calling me a shill for running that Cyberpunk stuff. I'm like, bro,
a shill for
that
what?
is the opposite of shill. Like, you need to look in the dictionary. The shill is the guy who has that and doesn't run it because he's kissing the company's ass. Like, people have no idea about what journalism is anymore, how it should function, how it has functioned in the past, what their jobs are. Like, I was flabbergasted by that question. And no offense to the person who asked it. Like, a lot of people are like you. Like, they think that the press is like this evil entity that's ruining everybody's fun. Like, I don't know. It's very frustrating to see the environment that we're in right now. Not just with games.
Part of it may also just be that the gaming press has functioned as a wing of the PR for game companies forever.
And that's what people expect.
That's what enthusiast press is to some degree. You know, it's like you get the same thing in automotive journalism.
You do. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of industries like that.
Yeah, and it's just
tech, all of it.
Tech, fashion, like that kind of thing. Basically, coverage of anything that is not life or death. You know, if it's just entertainment, it ain't that serious, really.
Yeah.
And maybe you're gonna run some scoop on like, the rumors that this person was cast in this or whatever, and or maybe you're not because you don't want to ruin your access to the real stories. You know, like Vanity Fair is probably not going to run something like that because they have such access to the casts and behind the scenes stuff where they do all those big articles all the time in the big movies. Like, is it more advantageous to them to keep that relationship going, or is it more, or going to get them more sales or more clicks to report on this weird rumor that the studio doesn't want reported on?
I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, a lot of consumers are conditioned for the entertainment press in particular to just pander.
Yeah.
To just do whatever it is that the publisher or the movie studio want you to do.
And most
when
of
someone
them
steps
are going to do
outside
that.
of that, most of them will do that. And when someone steps outside of that, they're the sore thumb. They're the one that sticks out. And then they target them. Instead of being like, you're doing your job, they're like, wait, you're doing things differently.
Yeah, but remember, like, they're not just, Kotaku's not just getting heat from the various companies because they publish rumors and stuff. They're also getting heat for things like what Jason Schreier does, where he goes and talks to these developers or these people that worked on these troubled projects under conditions of anonymity, like an actual journalist does, and reports on this, on basically the war on the ground, for lack of a better term, in terms of what it took to make Anthem, or in terms of what people went through in that process. And companies don't like that kind of airing that
their dirty laundry is real journalism.
Yeah, but but remember, if you enjoy or you want to know what's really happening behind the scenes through articles like what Jason Schreier writes, that's equally as annoying to these companies as publishing that that Watch Dogs 3 has got leaked. Like, that's up there too in terms of like, hey, we don't want, that's not part of our deal. It's like, well, too bad, because it's part of the actual story.
Right.
So I would rather have people like Jason Schreier, and I don't think there's enough of people like him
absolutely
in gaming press, but like, I would rather be able to read that and know the truth about those kinds of things than have Kotaku go to the Bethesda press conference. Because you know what, frankly, if you're sitting at home watching the Bethesda press conference on a stream, you know just the same as anyone sitting there.
You may get an interview after the press conference if you're there with somebody.
But you know what? Kotaku seems to get access just fine.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you 1,000%. If it's an either-or situation where it's like either Kotaku goes to the press conference or it continues doing what it's been doing, absolutely keep doing what it's been doing.
Yeah, and
it's not even a question. But the truth is, they should be able to get both. Bethesda, Ubisoft, they should not disinvite Kotaku to frickin' anything for doing its job.
Well, of course not, but that's just not how corporate anything works. Like, that's, it's the control of the message is paramount. I mean, it didn't end up happening, but I remember when there was sort of that little collapse of game press stuff, like G4 got canceled and game trailers shrank a bit, and like there was there was like questions of whether it would even be a thing anymore. A lot of the major publishers, the big AAA publishers, started investigating the idea of starting their own in-house media stuff.
Yeah.
Like basically having a network in-house that would report on the industry or whatever, but really they're there to message out properly. Sort of like the Nintendo Treehouse, but Nintendo's Treehouse doesn't pretend it's a press outlet. It's a Nintendo PR thing.
Yeah, I mean they do their own podcast.
But basically, you're talking about like they all kind of looked into doing like their own in-house streaming sort of version of Nintendo Power for themselves.
Yeah,
that'd be the kind of the equivalent of what it is, because Nintendo Power was just an ad, And that never really came to fruition. But that is something that they really were interested in. A lot of those companies were really interested in because they wanted control over what was being said. And, because people talk about, what if everybody started doing, exposés like Jason Schreier, like they wouldn't be able,
a lot of shit would get fixed real fast.
They wouldn't be able to, like, blackball all of us. It's like, they probably could, actually.
Well,
if they
especially
wanted to.
now with the influencers.
Yeah, they'd probably
you're looking for
shift that
shills. There's the shill.
Right.
The influencer is the shill.
And you see that often, more and more, like all these, even just the ones that get caught running their own gambling rings.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think I don't think Kotaku really has a problem with the fact that they're not allowed to go to Bethesda's press conference.
No, because dude, it drives gigantic traffic, gigantic. And look, when you're running a website, for us, it's not that big a deal because we're not really concerned about the mass volume of people that come to our website. But most commercial websites, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And it's not just how many people, it's how many uniques.
Right.
And when you break stories like that, people come to your website
that normally never come
to your website. Your uniques for that month skyrocket, and that's how you charge higher advertising rates and you make more money. So there's nothing more important than stuff like this.
Yeah. And like... basically I think it's another reminder to, these companies are not your friends.
Yes. I don't know how many more times we have to say this.
Even speaking as someone who is friends with people who work at those companies.
Right.
The companies are not your friends. Press conferences and E3 presentations, all that, they are all giant commercials trying to separate you from your money.
Yeah.
And always keep that, like the idea that there's fake people in the audience, there's fake people on the stage.
Yeah.
Like, they want you to buy their product. Like, it's like that's the whole point. It's not a celebration of gaming. It's a celebration of what we can do for our shareholders.
And look, I'll be honest, like when I was at the age, a lot of people who watch our show or watch a lot of other podcasts or listen to other podcasts, I was pretty naive too. So I don't want to be like too harsh on these people, but you need to listen to us. Let us learn the lessons for you. Like when I was in my 20s, I didn't think about the fact that companies were just draining every dollar out of me. Like, if they made something I liked that company. So I do get how some of you are still kind of in that bubble of Nintendo loves me. That's not how it is, folks.
Or go back in time and be a Sega fan. That'll teach you that.
Absolutely. All right, we got to move on. Next question is from Sifted from NeoJD. First part's for you. What do you guys think about Spider-Man Far From Home? Also, what about the new season of Stranger Things? So you tackle Spider-Man, I'll tackle Stranger Things.
Well, I also saw Stranger Things.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think you'd watch it.
That was my July 4th thing. We had a big viewing party. Watched the whole season in one day.
Oh, wow.
I thought Spider-Man Far From Home was excellent.
That's great to hear. I was really concerned.
Also, especially because I loved Endgame. I love all that, but I was kind of like, I felt like, I think I've even said it. I felt like if you wanted to stop the MCU now, I'd be fine with it. Like I got my complete story. We told the arc.
Yeah.
Like it's great. But after watching Far From Home, I'm like, bring it all in. Like,
wow.
I'm back in. I'm 100% back in.
That's
like,
great.
Like there's crazy callbacks in it. A character comes back from Iron Man 1.
Wow.
Which I bet you don't recognize who that guy is, by the way. Watch A Christmas Story again.
What?
the character that comes back from Iron Man 1 was the kid in A Christmas Story.
What? The blonde kid with the glasses.
Peter Billingsley, who was a producer on Iron Man and made a cameo in Iron Man 1.
I didn't even know that.
And he comes back in this one.
Wow. Crazy.
There's you never recognize him because he's the guy that in Iron Man 1 Jeff Bridges says Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. And the guy's like, I'm not Tony Stark. That's the kid.
Remember that scene.
That's the kid from A Christmas Story.
Wow.
And he pops up briefly in this.
Interesting.
So lots of great callbacks, lots of setup for future stuff. Stay around for the post-credits tease because if you want to see where Phase 4 is going,
it's right there.
There's a hint right here.
Wow.
There's a big hint right here. Tons of fun callbacks, but also just Spider-Man being Spider-Man. Spider-Man gets to be Spider-Man in the big climax of this in a way that he hasn't in the MCU really yet, because it's about Peter kind of growing and learning to trust himself and that kind of thing. By the end, they've set up a huge paradigm shift that's going to change how Spider-Man, the third Spider-Man movie in the MCU is going to be. They're going to be able to do a story they've never been able to do on film before for the next one. And meanwhile, like, they take him out of his comfort zone because it's all in Europe. It's not in New York anymore. And actually, that's even great because, like, once they get back home, you get to see a little bit of New York stuff, and it's like it's so good to see Spider-Man in New York again after a whole movie of him being in Europe.
Right.
That, like, you forget that we've had 5 movies with him swinging around New York, and it's like they've done a really good job, like, making this MCU Spidey really work. And I mean, Tom Holland's great in that role. Zendaya's great as MJ. I can't believe they made a movie with Mysterio in it. Like, Mysterio was always the villain that, like, back in the old Spider-Man, like, Raimi trilogy days,
well, yeah.
people would be like, oh, well, we'll never make a Mysterio movie. Like, Mysterio's the one nobody will ever make. Although Raimi did toy around with the idea of revealing in 3 or 4, that Bruce Campbell was Mysterio. And he was the same person in all his cameos in the Spider-Man trilogy. Yeah, that he was actually Quentin Beck following Spider-Man around and, like, preparing for, like, it would be like a big, like, kind of reveal in 4 or something that Mysterio was actually Bruce Campbell.
Huh.
And but like Mysterio, and so, like, now you've got the thing where it's like Sony has control of all of most of the Spider-Man villain stable with Venom and Black Cat and Morbius. God, they're making a Jared Leto Morbius movie. What a time! What a time to be alive. And they're like, oh, we'll take Mysterio, and we'll do it better than you. And they did.
They did.
It's great. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal is fantastic in the role. If you don't know anything about who Mysterio is, they nail it, and in a way that I think will be really surprising for people that don't know the comics. If you do know the comics, it's exactly what Mysterio should be, with a little twist that makes it fit in the MCU really well. They do a really good thing. One of my big problems with the Venom movie, and I actually I think Venom is a terrible movie, but I think it's fun. Like, I didn't. It's not like when I
watched it.
It's not like I saw Batman vs Superman and I left the theater angry.
Right.
Like, I thought Venom. I'm like, that was bad and dumb, and it wasn't really the Venom movie I want. It's not the Venom I want on screen. But I had a good time watching it.
Yeah, I made it through the movie,
and I felt like everybody in that movie knew they were in a bad movie and had fun with it as well, except Tom Hardy. But that's also part of the fun.
Right.
That Tom Hardy doesn't know that it's a bad movie. But, like. It's interesting to see. My problem with, like, the Venom movie and the way they did it with that is I understand they kind of had to keep it separate from the MCU stuff because that's just not what the license is. But now they're talking about crossing the Tom Holland Spider-Man over with Venom in a Venom sequel, and that doesn't work because Spider-Man's villains always have to be his fault.
That's
Spider-Man
true.
Accidentally creates
You're right.
all
he
his
does.
villains.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
And just this random monster... space monster fighting Spider-Man just because they did in the comics doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
This one has Far From Home is a really clever way of making Mysterio Peter's fault. And that is the hallmark of a great villain.
Yeah.
Same with Vulture. Like, Vulture in Homecoming, he's not Peter's fault in the sense that he didn't create Michael Keaton's, business or anything. But Peter poking his nose into it and kind of getting too personally close to the situation is what makes Vulture dangerous,
right.
And what makes him a threat
makes
to
Peter,
to who Peter cares about, and to New York in general.
Yeah.
And so Peter Parker always has to create his own problems to some degree, and they find a really clever way of making that happen and a really clever way of solving it. So I thought it was great, and I was really just going to see it out of inertia.
Yeah.
I was just going, it's a Marvel movie. I'm going to go see it. Spider-Man. I like Homecoming a lot. I like Tom Holland's Spider-Man a lot, so I'm going to go see it. No, I thought it was great. Blew me away. I was not ready for it to be as good as it was. Was it as good as Into the Spider-Verse? That's a hard one. But I do think I'd call it the best live-action Spider-Man movie.
Wow. All right, let's move to Stranger Things.
And Stranger Things, I think we have established at times in the past that I am not a huge Stranger Things fan.
That's why I didn't think you would even watch it already, would have watched it already.
It's like the Game of Thrones thing. It's like, if you don't watch it, you're not going to have anything to talk about at parties for the next month. I
don't feel like this season, though, is tracking that way.
What, 40 million people watched it?
Yeah, I know, but people aren't talking about it like they have for the last 2 seasons.
I don't know. The first season I thought was okay. Second season I thought was pretty bad. I thought season 3 was great.
Really?
Like, I thought.
See, I think it's I haven't finished it. So I just finished episode 7 last night. I have 3 more to go. I think. Is there 10?
You have 1 more. It's 8.
Oh, really?
It's eight episodes.
Oh, then no way. If there's only one episode left, no way. It's the worst of the three.
Nah, even close. It's the only one that is more than the sum of its parts. It's the only one that has enough story to fill out its entire runtime. It's the only one that doesn't constantly repeat its own character conflicts without getting to any character development.
All that may be true, but there are so many freaking plot holes and
I have found no plot holes
implausibility.
whatsoever.
Why don't they take a camera? Wow.
Why don't they
I
take a
cannot
what?
believe you think this.
Why don't they take what?
A camera to document stuff. Like, the one guy's even a photographer. And all this insane stuff is happening everywhere, and they're the only people who know it's happening. It's insanely preposterous. I almost quit watching it. It became so absurd. I was like, how is all this insane crap happening? Not just in this little town, but with these huge corporations and nobody knows anything about it. It's crazy.
Well, before the internet, no one could talk to each other.
I lived before the
don't you remember
internet.
that?
There were phones. There were other ways to communicate.
Phones don't work. Phones don't work when you have to talk about Russians. Everybody knows that.
Look, any sci-fi, you have to suspend disbelief a little bit. We all know that. We all love sci-fi. This season, to me, is just ridiculously absurd. I was hoping...
That might be why I like it more, because they actually took their premise and ran with it, as opposed to kind of half-assing it the way they did in the first two seasons.
To hear there's one episode left just destroys
They've also
me.
actually got a budget this time, which is
the effects are amazing. Like,
Well,
I
the
can't
effects are
believe
amazing.
it's
Also,
a freaking TV show.
I think at least a third of the budget went to music licensing.
I think
there's
that's
so
another
much
thing.
music licensing.
There is, but that's another thing. I think the music in this season sucks. I think they did a horrible job of plucking the tunes out of that era and those years. I could go on and on. You telling me that there's one episode left destroys me, because up until that moment where you told me that, I was like, there's 3 episodes left to save the season. And I don't think it's not terrible. If you're looking at TV, it's certainly still a top shelf television production. The production values are insane. The acting's mostly good. But to me, compared to the other seasons of Stranger Things, it is way, way behind.
Well, my only point of comparison would be to remember that this is the guy who thinks season 8 of Game of Thrones is fine. So we're of a very different... You're watching the season 3 of Stranger Things from the dimension of the Game of Thrones season 8 that I watched, I think. Because...
Maybe.
You're reacting...
But it doesn't seem like people... I don't know. I don't feel like I'm an outlier. Like, again, it doesn't seem like no one's talking about it. Like, no one's discussing it on social media. And I
think no one's talking about it because it's season 3. I mean, it's still doing huge numbers.
It is, yeah.
But
like the biggest ever.
But there's not a lot to talk about in terms of sort of like, without spoiling everything, really. It's like the character development, because people.
I don't feel like there's anything that happens that feels like it's spoilerific, though.
Well, I don't think so, but there are people who think casting choices are spoilers.
Yeah, that's just stupid.
Yeah, but people don't want to talk about that on Twitter, because then you get yelled at by 100 people for 4 days. it's.
But people usually there's like
seen
the
a lot of
first
talk
week
about
is the grace period.
I've seen a lot of talk about a week's not over yet.
It came out on July 4th, right?
Yeah, it's
I guess you're right. Tomorrow will be the 11th. Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of people, mostly people who are talking about Steve. Like, everyone's a fan of Steve. Steve doesn't get many of his great moments until late in the season, though. And
I thought it was bad until episode 4 or 5. Stuff started actually happening.
No, I think it moves real well the whole time. I think the characters finally have a lot to do. They expanded Joyce a lot, because Winona Ryder basically sleptwalked through the second season.
But see, I think her acting's terrible in this season. Everything's overacted. Her scenes with that guy, man.
What guy?
I'm really her love interest. The cop.
Hopper.
Yeah, where they argue back and where they argue back and forth. I just feel it's all poorly acted and wrote.
The Russian guy agrees with you.
What?
The Russian guy agrees with you.
That's a good joke.
But I like that character too. I think
that whole stuff was absurd. All of it.
Of course, it's absurd.
It's like.
Anytime you make a Red Dawn reference, you're going to get in the absurd.
Yeah.
Man, also, make sure you stick when you watch the last episode. There's a post-credit sequence.
Okay.
Stick around to the end of the credits.
All right. But it's even the production values are pretty
Which
impressive.
you will find even more absurd.
Oh, really?
Buckle up. They're going
CG
crazy.
is really good for a TV show, but then there's it's almost like they filmed some of the show like it's an old crappy 80s sitcom. because when they're in the one base and they're trying to escape, like, he pushes a bunch of 50-pound drums, and they're made out of, like, paper mache, and they go flying into, like, the corner of the room. Like, to me, this whole season is full of crap like that. Like, just from top to bottom. And I've watched it all by myself because my wife doesn't care. So I've had to sit and watch all this by myself. I don't know if that's impacted it in any way.
I don't know. I much prefer a little weird and a little schlock to, like, just the running in place they did for season 2. Like, it's the fact that
I feel like more stuff happened in season. Again, I'm not
nothing
done.
happens in season 2. Like, everyone had.
She finally discovers, like, her real power, though, and you get to see it.
Yeah, but that takes 8 fucking episodes. Like, and then to do it, they have her go away for an entire episode in episode 7, where you could have sprinkled that through the whole thing. And also, like, why did you start season 2 with that other psychic girl if you're not going to show her for 7 more episodes and then never mention her again? Yeah. None of that matters.
Those are small sticks to me after
those aren't
compared
small
to
sticks
season
at all.
3.
Those are structural.
Those are like nitpicks. The stuff I'm complaining about in this season are just
episode 7
bad.
of season 2 being like a complete random tangent that has nothing to do with anything else, and the only outcome of it is that she has a cooler haircut at the end. That is not a nitpick. That is a structural weakness in the entire season that makes no sense.
To me, the first 2 seasons were page turners.
If you'd spread
season
that out,
3, like, I don't even feel
you
motivated
got to turn the
keep
page in
watching
season 2 because otherwise nothing fucking happens. If you spread episode 7 out further, like, ahead of itself, you no longer have to have 5 episodes where the exact same conflict between Hopper and Eleven is played out over and over and over, which they also do in season 1, where they have Lucas have the same conflict with the same group in episode 6, and then they resolve it, and then the same conflict comes up again in episode 7 because they have no other way to end the season. Like, that doesn't happen in season 3. They came up with 8 episodes of story. Whether you like the story or not is a different question, but an oddity.
The story's okay.
An oddity in a Netflix series, they have enough story to fill the number of episodes they have.
The other thing I don't like about it, how it's shot, is it's shot like a soap opera. So they can never just finish a scene. Scene should end, and instead they go to the soap opera facial reaction shot every time. The weird, like, look away, or the, ooh, like, it's bad. I can't believe you can't see it. The production values to me are just crap. Like,
I literally have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Go watch it again.
I don't want to watch it again. I didn't like it that much.
Every scene finishes with the ooh or the oh my god. It's a soap opera. They shoot it like a soap opera this season. Also, another show that just jumped the shark that way is a show on HBO called Big Little Lies. Same deal. First season great. This season it's a frickin' soap opera with these weird, like, dangling, like, shots at the end of every scene. Like, I don't know. I don't hate it. I'm still gonna watch it. I have one more episode to go. But literally, the first 2 seasons for me...
I don't think the last episode is going to change your mind.
I know it's not. That's why I'm so devastated for you to say there's one more.
I mean, the last episode's good, but, like, especially in the effects department. But, like, you're not...
I know. That's why I'm so just destroyed over this. Like, I thought there was 3 more to go, and I'm like, that's plenty of time for them to turn this whole thing around.
No, they went 6-8-8.
That hurts.
That's plenty.
It's still good. Like, look, if you have Netflix, watch it.
I wouldn't have watched 13 hours in one day.
Like, the first 2 seasons I watched straight. Like, I watched all the episodes all at once. And now it's a week later, I still haven't finished 8 episodes of this.
I had to struggle through season 1 and especially season 2.
Wow.
This one watching
I think you're an outlier on that, though.
Everyone I watched it with really liked it.
I liked it.
And liked it better than the other seasons.
I just think the bar was set way higher by the first 2 seasons.
I don't think the bar was barely off the ground off the first 2 seasons. Like, I don't find the first 2... I see Stranger Things has been one of the things wrong. I don't understand why everybody loves this show so much. Like, I like a lot of the characters. It's got a stellar cast. Like, the casting, it's like a J.J. Abrams movie. It's like, the cast is amazing. Do something with them.
But see, you're definitely an outlier there. I mean, there's a reason why 40 million people watch season 3. It's because they loved the first 2 seasons. If the first 2 seasons were as bad as you say they are, there wouldn't be a 3rd season.
Well, no, plenty of things that are bad last that long. Transformers got 5 fucking movies.
Right, but like, no, people watch this. It's like the most watched thing on Netflix.
Yeah, well, most people watch Transformers 2 and 3, too, but they were god-awful movies, but they made $1 billion. Watching them doesn't mean you liked it, but, like, they keep coming back. But also, I think, 18.5 million people finished the season in the first few days. So about half of the people finished it.
Yeah, because 40-some million watched it.
40 million watched it, 18-some million had finished it. So clearly other people don't have a lot of time, or they're in the same boat you are and trying to get to the end of it. But no, everyone I watched it with, it was a group of like seven or eight of us. Everybody thought it was great. My nitpick on it is early on in the season when I think the first episode actually when Dustin comes home from camp because he's been at camp before the series starts.
Yeah.
All the robots start walking through. You see it in the trailer, like all the robots start walking through his house. One of the robots is Ultra Magnus. Ultra Magnus did not come out for another year.
Oh, really?
After the setting, it was set in July 1985. Ultra Magnus came out in 1986. He also didn't roll on his own, but I do believe that Dustin is the type of person to modify his robot toys to roll on their own.
Or she could just be levitating them.
Well, no, it's got an extra like motor in the back of it that does not exist.
I'm shocked that you're caught on something like that and you haven't noticed how they shot the whole season.
I did notice how they shot the whole season. It just doesn't bother me. Like I don't know what you're talking about.
Soap opera thing.
I would not describe it as a soap opera thing. I would describe it as true to its source material, which is 1980s like sci-fi. Like I mean, those things are not.
The first two seasons were not shot that way, and it was really more about being cut that way.
Well, I don't know who edited this stuff, but I really didn't notice that in terms of a negative thing.
If you ever go back and watch it, you'll notice it now.
I'm not going to notice it because I noticed I know what you're talking about in terms of like ending on reaction shots, but I don't associate that with soap operas, and B was not bothered by it in any way whatsoever. Like I don't know what to tell you.
I hate those shots. It reminds me of sitting watching Young and the Restless with my mom and cringing.
I also think they nailed the setting for the first time ever. Like it felt like stuff that actually happened in the 80s in this series, as opposed to sort of like this weird attempt to replicate the 80s that was really just sort of focused through having watched Goonies too many times. The mall culture thing, I think they nailed all that.
They nailed that, absolutely.
Like that all felt extremely true in a way.
Oh, I lived it. It absolutely was very accurate.
And I think that's partly because the Duffer Brothers, I think they were born in '83. They didn't live the earlier stuff from the previous seasons, but mall culture existed into the mid '90s, so they would have had firsthand.
They definitely nailed the whole mall thing. We got to move on though.
And 70 product deals. They had 70 something product placement
like the new Coke scene.
Because of all the different mall stores and all the different. They had over 70.
It was funny seeing all those old stores that used to exist.
It was great. Sam Goody. It was great to see Sam Goody again.
Orange Julius actually still exists, believe it or not.
Orange Julius is still good. They got one up in the Glendale Galleria. It's good.
We got to move on. Next from Twitter, Ian McGar. Some Instagram gamer girl is selling her bathwater and it's sold out for 30 quid. Discuss.
People buy anything.
They will. All I'm going to say is...
I take that girl as basically satire, and I think she's doing a great job.
All I can say is if I could sell my bathwater for 30 quid, I would sell it. Next.
That is a definite profit.
Absolutely. Next up from Sifted, from Derek D. In the Wall Street Journal, when speaking about the PlayStation 5, a Sony exec said, Sony, quote, Sony sees Microsoft as its main competition, with Google a potential threat in the mid to long term as internet technology evolves. The Nintendo Switch is not really considered a major competitor because most of its owners are children with less disposable income to spend on games, end quote. I kind of agree. What about you guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the Switch is not in the same market, essentially.
Yeah. I think it's hard for Nintendo fans to admit it, and I think it's been hard for Nintendo fans to admit that for a long time, but it is true. Like, the vast majority of people who buy Nintendo games are adults buying them for children. I mean, that's just the truth. You can dispute it all you want. Like, I remember back during the N64 days, everybody called Nintendo games kiddie, and it bothered me, not because I was a Nintendo fan, but it bothered me because I could see entertainment for the whole family getting shoved into like this corner and looked down upon. And I'm like, no, it shouldn't be that way, because I remember when I was a kid, I needed these games to build me up to the point where I'm playing what I'm playing now. Like, this part of the market needs to be there. But it is the truth. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I would say Nintendo games are more for all ages than for kids. But there's no denying that, the skew of the demographic and
or the fact that they don't have their own money. They have to rely on someone else to buy
and
their
also
stuff.
just like the fact that it's just, the power level makes a difference here. Like, modern games are not being released on parity with Sony system and Nintendo system. So what is Sony competing with?
Yeah,
nothing. Like, they're aiming at different levels. Like, it's just not there, and one level isn't necessarily better than the other, but like, how would Sony compete with that?
Why would it want
Why
to?
would it?
Why would it want to?
Like, I don't think anyone...
Why would it go to a market where its
just,
consumers don't have any money?
Like, despite what you might see in some of the nuttier forums out there, most people are not buying a Switch and then deciding that means they don't need a PlayStation 4.
Right.
Or let alone a PlayStation 5. Like, this is not... Yep. It's not a war you're gonna... It's not just a war you're not gonna win. It's a war you wouldn't even know where to begin fighting. Like,
I could see where this would
release a
draw
PSP
the ire of Nintendo fans, because to them, they probably feel like Nintendo is finally whooping Sony. And
but Sony doesn't care.
Right. And so when the fact that Sony doesn't care about that is like, wait a minute, we've waited 20 years for this, and you're telling me it doesn't matter.
Well, Nintendo became successful because they decided to stop competing with the other two on their level.
Yep,
that's
exactly.
What they found their own niche. They found a niche can be real big.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like,
it can also be very profitable. So just if you're a Nintendo, Derek D, I'm not saying that you're a Nintendo fan, and this is why you asked this. It's a great question, but if you are a Nintendo fan and you're feeling salty over this, like,
well, he said he agrees.
Oh, he agrees, right? Yeah, that's a good point.
With Wall Street Journal,
he agrees with the Wall Street Journal. But if you're feeling that way about this, try to look on the positive side, which is Nintendo's in a position right now where people ask this question. Think about it. How long has it been since people even looked at Sony and Nintendo
I get what you're saying.
and considered Nintendo as even a competitor with Sony? Like, it hasn't happened in like 20 years.
Well, it's been. I mean, GameCube was pretty much it. Because when the Wii, I mean, Nintendo kind of created that space themselves when they launched, when the Wii became the hit.
Right.
And Nintendo themselves, Reggie would constantly give interviews where he's like, "Oh, what about the, they'd be like, what about the PlayStation 3?" And they're like, "Oh, well, we're not really."
He would say that. You're right. He would say that they're not our competitor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nintendo has said that Sony's not really competing with them. So just enjoy Nintendo's success and screw the haters. That's what I say. Last question from Mike's Q. Why is the summer break so neglected by game publishers? It's notorious for being a drought. Is there a business reason for it, or is it just vacation? What is your favorite repeat game? When you need a comfort food game, what do you snack on?
I mean, I think that the so-called conventional wisdom is that families go on vacation, they go off and do outside things, and that, like, your bigger market is going to be in the colder months when people are inside playing stuff.
It's just simple logic, really.
And don't give me no Switch crap on that. Take your Switch to the pool all you want, but no, most people aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
There's nowhere in a bathing suit you can put a Switch. Too big.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's, I don't know.
I mean, it bugs me, too, that there's nothing coming out, but it's like, it makes sense. It's not like the game developers on vacation. They're all still working.
Yeah.
The vacation element is people aren't around to play indoor things as much. So you want to basically hold off on the big guns. Yeah,
and there aren't that many. Look, there's lots of stories of games doing great release.
Nintendo's still got a pretty solid schedule all through.
Yeah, because Fire Emblem was coming.
The Fire Emblem, we got, there's real stuff coming from Nintendo.
Yep. But if you look, like, the first quarter of this year, games did great. But I cannot recall too many games that have sold really well in the summer.
No, I mean, late August is about your cutoff.
That's the cutoff. So in this case, like, we always complain, like, there should be more games released in Q1. We've never really argued there should be more games released in the summertime because we don't really have any evidence to point that it would be a good idea.
The only people that's really would be helping are people trying to make weekly shows about video
like
games.
Us.
Like that.
Even we have not been like, we need more games in summertime.
I mean, that was the problem back in the X-Play days. Was like, okay, we'd have that meeting after E3. Like, what are we going to do for 3 months? Like,
and that's when you start. Actually, that's when we got really creative usually and started putting out some of the best episodes X-Play ever did.
Yeah, that's when they made the mistake of letting me go to the desert and blow up gasoline bombs for a week.
Yep. So maybe this is an opportunity for you guys to get out. Go play some Harry Potter Wizards Unite.
Go play some Mario Maker in the sun. See if you can get a Wi-Fi connection somewhere.
I mean, the good news is you can take us with you. You just take the podcast version of GameFace, and you can take us around as you do your thing, and we'll keep you connected to games while you get out and enjoy life a little bit. How about that?
Or we'll just argue about Stranger Things for 20 minutes.
Yeah, we just added 30 minutes onto this show and about 3 hours onto render time with our Stranger Things.
It was pretty short.
Yeah, it was.
It was only a 2-hour show until somebody asked about movies and Stranger Things.
Yep. So anyway, that's it for GameFace. I'll be trying to get this out to you guys as soon as I can. There's a lot of post-production that's going to be done to this episode, but I'll definitely get it out to you guys before I take off on Thursday morning. So, like I said, got a studio coming. We got some big stuff in the works. We're really excited about it, and it's all coming up pretty soon.
Everything's coming up Millhouse.
Yeah. So we'll see you late next week for another episode. GameFace is up and out.